As we get into 2026, you might have a little extra time off, or maybe you're just hunting for something new to play. Well, today you're getting the ultimate shortcut. I spent the last year playing and reviewing tons of games. Some incredible, some terrible, and some that surprised me in ways I didn't expect. So instead of digging through thousands of pages on Steam, here are 35 games you need to know about, and a few you should probably avoid. Strap in because this is the complete, ranked breakdown of every free-to-play game that I played over the last year. Ever since Half-Life 2 and its episodes dropped, fans have been left waiting, 20 years and counting for more. Despite Valve releasing other games in the Half-Life universe, there's still no word on Half-Life 3. Unless, of course, you believe some of the 2024 rumors that have been going around. So if you're craving the next Half-Life fix but you're tired of replaying the classics, what should you do? Enter Transmissions Element 120, a single-player game you've probably never heard of. It's set in the Half-Life universe, but we don't know when, where, or why we're there. By the end, I was still unsure about a lot of things, but one thing's for certain, we're going to find out if it's worth your time. Let's dive in. This solo experience means that we don't have to worry about inviting our friends through complicated interfaces, although it is a Steam game, so that's generally not a worry in the first place. It's very quick to get into a new game. Just click New Game from the menu, and after a quick loading screen, you spawn into the first level. In terms of the game's objective, we need to go back to the beginning. The Half-Life series began 25 years ago in 1998, so if you've played other Half-Life games in the series, you pretty much know what you're doing here. Most of which is wandering around, collecting weapons, ammo, and power-ups to defeat enemies. Also, it's an FPS, which means all of the same things I've just mentioned still apply. The one difference I'd like to mention is that there is a much greater puzzle element to this game than with other Half-Life games, but I'll speak more to that in a bit. The gameplay experience is very short, which means it does lack some depth. You can probably get through the experience in anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour depending on your playstyle. Depending on your experience level, you might even be able to get through it quicker. So why does this game exist? Well, that's a good question. A quote from the game store page. "Where are you? Why have you been sent?" After playing through the game, I still don't have the answers. And to be fair, there are a couple of reasons for this. The first is that while I've played all of the games in the Half-Life series, that was some time ago. Some of the journals I found in the game referenced things I understood, but I couldn't tie them to the original story. This is either intentional or I'm just forgetful and that's why it didn't make sense. The second reason is that on the Steam store page, it doesn't really say why this game exists. Most mods or games that are short in nature explain how they are bridging a gap between two games or adding to the experience that they felt was left out of the main game. But this one just talks about how they added some new engine features and strays from telling you why you're playing it. Remember earlier when I said that there was a puzzle element to this game? Well, I struggled with a couple of the puzzles, but I'm going to set my own biases for puzzle games aside here and say that yes, this game was a lot of fun. There are a lot of people who are better at puzzle games than I am, and I think if that's your jam, you're going to enjoy it. Puzzles aside, the remaining gameplay experience is very reminiscent of the Half-Life series, so if you enjoyed those games, you will definitely enjoy Transmissions. I already mentioned that this game is a short-lived experience. Most people who play can finish it in one sitting, and for that reason I don't think I would return to it. You could go back and unlock the 11 achievements the game has to offer, but if you look at them ahead of time, you could probably complete them on your first playthrough. Unless of course the devs put some Easter eggs in there that I missed, then maybe it's worth hopping back in. To be fair to the devs, it's likely that the short nature of this game was completely intentional, but again, I don't know what the point was in this experience unless it was truly just to showcase the additional engine enhancements that they added. Even though this game isn't multiplayer, the number of people playing it does give us some clues as to how interested people are in this single-player experience. At the time that I was writing the script for this video, the 30-day average was 2.6 players and the current player count was 1. Transmissions was released back in 2016, and so this isn't super surprising that there is a low player base. I know it sounds like I've been trashing on this game for the last minute or so let me change gears on you and talk about all the things that I enjoyed about it. This game looks really good. If you enjoyed how Half-Life 2 looked, you'll enjoy this even more with the enhanced dynamic lighting and post-processing. There is also some nostalgia to be had by playing Transmissions, and it definitely hits you in the feels, almost as if you were back in your desk in 2004 booting up Half-Life 2 for the first time. The fights weren't always easy, which made the experience a lot of fun. I don't want to spoil anything in that regard, so if this game seems interesting to you, you'll have to play it and find out for yourself. The gravity-defying gun they mentioned in the store page was a bunch of fun to play around with. There were some things that surprised me it didn't do, but other than that, it was great. The last item on the list of things I liked was the QR code scattered about. You can scan them in-game, but I didn't realize that at first, so I held up my phone with the camera app open and scanned the QR code, giving me the same message as when you scan it in-game. Even though I'm pretty sure this exists elsewhere, this is one of the first time I've seen something like this, and it was pretty cool. I do have a couple more dislikes to cover, but they're pretty minimal. I play all my games in 1080p, and for some reason the game started with a resolution of 720p. This isn't a huge problem because it's an easy fix. You can just go into settings, change the resolution, and call it a day, but I felt like it was worth a mention. Also, I personally didn't like the difficulty of the puzzles here, but again, I'm not knocking the game for this. I'm simply saying it again in case you're like me. A couple of the puzzles can be frustrating for those not expecting it, or those who are just bad at them. That said, after figuring them out, I feel like an idiot because they were much easier than I initially anticipated. Had Transmissions been a full-on game experience, I can confidently say that I would have stopped playing, but for others this might have been a reason to keep chugging along. So overall, what kind of score does Transmissions Element 120 receive? Well, it gets a point for how easy it is to join a friend, because, you know, it's a single-player game. Add another point for being able to get into a game quickly, as well as another for the objective being straightforward. No points for depth since it's a very short experience, but then we do give it another point because the overall experience is a lot of fun. We give it a point for both having some cool features and very few issues, making the overall experience a positive one. But sadly, that's where the points end. Because there aren't a lot of people playing it, and because it doesn't offer a lot of replayability, I'm not seeing a reason to go back and play it again. Overall, this means that Transmissions Element 120 gets a score of 6 out of 10, giving it a rank of B tier. If you're planning to play Transmissions, I've added a link to the store page in the description. If you enjoyed the video or agree with the B tier rating, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button. And if you strongly disagree, or if you have an idea for a free-to-play game you'd like me to review, let me know down in the comments. Delta Force launched into open beta on December 4th to mixed reviews. But why? Some say the game feels super fun and a lot like Battlefield, but others are saying it might install spyware? Well, that's a big claim. Let's come back to that later, but first let's talk about what it's like to play the game. When you start Delta Force for the first time, you need to set up a League Pass account. If you're wondering what that is, so was I. It's a level infinite pass, a third-party account system that games like Arena Breakout Infinite and Exoborn use. As it turns out, I already had an account but didn't know it. An error message flashed on the screen for just a second and then disappeared without me noticing, so I was still waiting for an authentication code that never showed up. Only after trying it again did I notice the error telling me I already had an account, and after spending 6 minutes on figuring this out and resetting my password, I finally logged in. But even now I see a weird login failed message when I start the game, so I'm not really sure what's up with that. Once the game launched, I stared at a screenshot and a loading bar for another 3 minutes while I waited for shaders to load. Then there was an intro video that took another 4 minutes. It would have been nice if the video played while the shaders were loading, at least there would have been something to watch while waiting. Luckily, you can skip the video, and if you're wondering, it's the usual story. You're not missing much. Once everything was set up, I tried logging in again to see how long it would take to get into a game. From the moment I clicked play in Steam to actually getting into a match, it took me 2 minutes and 25 seconds, clicking through the menus as fast as possible. Your experience might vary depending on your hardware, available matches, and other factors, but this should give you a decent idea of how long it takes to jump into a game solo. Inviting a friend in my squad was harder than I expected. I try to give games the benefit of the doubt, but after all these issues I ran into, I think it's fair to call this a problem. Before you can invite someone to a squad or join theirs, you need to add them as a friend. The friend interface is pretty confusing. There's a search box at the top of the screen with an add button next to it, but when you start typing your friend's name, the add button disappears. And that's because the search box is meant for finding your existing friends, not adding new ones. To add a new friend, you either have to click on the add button first, or if you've already started typing their name, use the advanced search button at the bottom of the screen. This then takes you to a different screen to complete the search. In my opinion, this all could have been done on one page. Another issue I noticed was with the friend invites themselves. Whether I sent an invite or received one, the notification just didn't appear at first. I could hear the sound of the invite, but there was no pop-up to click. I had to Google how to accept squad invites in the game just to figure out what to look for, and then out of nowhere it just started working. Once my friend accepted the invite, we were finally able to get into a game together. While struggling with the squad invites, I also tried inviting through the Steam friends list. My friend received the invite, but when they clicked play, nothing happened. The same thing also happened when they invited me. The game's objective is easy to understand. If you've played the Battlefield series, you'll recognize modes similar to Conquest and Rush. In Delta Force, they're called King of the Hill and Attack and Defend. In King of the Hill, you capture and hold points on the map. Attack and Defend has defenders trying to stop the attackers from capturing points. If the attackers succeed, the defenders fall back, and the fight moves to the next sector. Some modes are limited, like Blitz, which is King of the Hill but without base respawns, and since it wasn't available when I played, I won't be covering it in the review. Another mode is Operations, an extraction mode similar to Escape from Tarkov, DMZ in Call of Duty, or Hazard Zone in Battlefield. If you've played any extraction shooter, this one will feel familiar. Lastly, there's a campaign mode coming soon, but as of the review, it is not available. When it comes to story, there really isn't one, at least not until the campaign is released, but there's plenty to keep you busy with progression. Like other shooters, Delta Force has a battle pass, progression system for weapons, operators, vehicles, as well as multiple quests, or events as the game calls them. The game includes different challenges and quests that seem to be updated regularly. This means that along with unlocking new items as you progress, there's always a fresh challenge to tackle. Combined with the time-limited modes, there's always something to keep you engaged. Delta Force is super fun to play. The shooting is exciting, the special abilities of the characters are believable and entertaining, and the maps are well designed, creating a fun and an exhilarating experience. It really is just a free version of Battlefield and overall just feels really good. In terms of returning to the game, I'd say maybe, but I'm leaning towards yes. As I've already said, the game really feels like Battlefield, so if you're already playing Battlefield 2042, Battlefield 3 or 4, and you're still working on unlocking new gear and characters, you'll probably have more fun progressing in those games since you're already invested. But if you're tired of those games, you want something fresh, or if you just want a free-to-play game that feels like Battlefield, you're gonna love Delta Force. Most multiplayer games offer lots of replay value, whether that's due to the various maps, the loadouts you use, the opponents you're playing against, or the game mode. There's so many different options that make each match feel different. Delta Force is no exception. There were matches where our team came back after a rough start, and others where we lost the lead at the last second. In Operations, you get that rush of excitement when you hear your enemies nearby, wondering who's going to win the fight. Since the game is still in open beta, I'm sure it will only get better as time goes on. A lot of people are playing Delta Force right now, which shows how excited players are for something that's not Battlefield or Call of Duty. Looking at the peak player counts, there have been anywhere from 50,000 to over 100,000 players online since launch. Those are impressive numbers, especially when compared to Battlefield 2042. During the same time period, Battlefield 2042's player count ranged between 7,000 and 17,000. Of course, many Battlefield fans are likely trying out Delta Force, and both games are available on more platforms than just Steam. Still, the difference in player numbers is hard to ignore, and it's likely due to some of the things that make this game great. Now on to some things that I appreciate about this game. One of the first things I noticed with Delta Force is the skippable intro. Too many games force you to sit through the cinematic intros that add little to no value. Most players either don't pay attention or forget about them right away, and gamers are always asking for skippable intros, and it's great to see the developers get this right. The operator's futuristic abilities and tools are both fun and practical. For example, D-Wolf has a triple blaster that fires 3 grenades, tactical movement that lets him run faster, and smoke grenades for cover. All of these abilities are incredibly useful in combat. From the few operators I've tried, it seems like their traits and gadgets are consistently well thought out. The gunplay in Delta Force felt fantastic. You don't need to spend hours figuring out mechanics like bullet drop or worrying about complex weapon handling. Even with the sniper rifle, I only needed a minute or two to get the hang of it, and I was effective on the battlefield right away. Delta Force manages to feel both familiar and unique. It shares some resemblance with Battlefield in design and gameplay, but stands apart far enough to feel like its own experience. That balance of familiarity makes it easy to jump in without having to completely learn a new playstyle, while the differences add a fresh layer of excitement. Lastly, teams in Delta Force seem to be much better at supporting each other than in Battlefield. Sure, you still have moments where a teammate runs past you while you're downed, but overall the level of support was impressive. I was genuinely surprised by how often I was revived. On top of that, players frequently dropped ammo and heals in critical areas, making it easier to hold key positions and fend off enemy pushes. It really felt like teammates understood the objective and worked together to win. Even though Delta Force has a lot of things that make it a good game, we can't overlook some of the negatives. I'm not a fan of games using unnecessary launchers, especially when they're launched through another platform. Unfortunately, the Delta Force launcher comes with its own set of issues. For instance, every time I click play in Steam, I get a login failed error. While I eventually get into the game, it's an annoyance. On top of that, closing the game doesn't close the launcher. It lingers in the system tray, making it appear as though you're playing for hours when you're not. The user interface and experience are mostly manageable, but some design choices are baffling. I've already touched on the convoluted friend adding process, but there's another issue: the reward collection system. Collecting rewards involves navigating to multiple screens similar to a mobile game. Why not just consolidate everything into one interface? This isn't just my opinion, many negative reviews have been highlighting this flaw. The next issue is something that Call of Duty players will be familiar with: compiling shaders. While there's a need for this, the implementation is terrible.
There are very few games on the market that take this approach of stopping you from doing pretty much anything while shaders are compiling, and it's frustrating if you have limited time to get into a game, and so you sit down to play only to realize that you have to wait for shaders to compile. Many gamers have purchased SSDs over the years to reduce load times, and now here we are stuck waiting for something else. I know that this game is only in the beta phase, and so maybe the issues I've mentioned will get better over time, but if a game company is willing to take our money for battle passes and items, then I think it's important that we hold them to a high standard. Speaking of money, let's discuss the in-game economy. Delta Force uses multiple currencies: Delta Coins, Delta Tickets, and Mandel Coins. These currencies all share the same exchange rate of 1 to 1, but that system feels unnecessarily complicated. Delta Tickets appear to be a bonus for market transactions, but the purpose of Mandel Coins remains unclear. With one Delta Coin equaling one of each of these other currencies, I'm really failing to understand the point. The pricing is also eyebrow-raising. While the Battle Pass is reasonably priced at around $10 US, weapon packs and bundles are a different story. One pack in the store costs 2,400 Delta Coins, or tickets, equating to at least $40, and that's the sale price. Regularly, it would cost $50 US. Another bundle is priced at $70 on sale, or $100 at full price. While the most shocking example, a gun listed for 130,000 Delta Coins, which equates to, let's do the math here. Yeah, that's way too much. While nobody is expected to pay that, the mere existence of such prices is absurd. Compared to other shooters where you can buy cool skins for under $20, this pricing structure feels preposterous. Yes, you don't have to buy anything, but the comparison to more consumer-friendly pricing in other games is hard to ignore. Alright, with the review out of the way, before we get to the rank, let's address the spyware elephant in the room. I'm not an expert on kernel-level anti-cheat. Let's call it KLA, but here's my take as someone with 17 years of IT experience. If these negative reviewers are going by the literal definition of spyware, then sure, I guess it's spyware. But then so is social media, and every other piece of software on your machine that sends data back to a company after you accept their terms of service. Spyware implies malicious intent, which isn't the case here, and developers are transparent about the KLA. The store page explicitly mentions it, and you have to create a third-party account and accept the EULA before playing. If this anti-cheat were truly malicious, other games using it, like Arena Breakout Infinite, would have been pulled by now. Additionally, with Delta Force available on Steam and Epic Games, their vetting process would have flagged any major issues related to spyware. Lastly, no major gaming news outlets like PC Gamer, IGN, or Kotaku have reported concerns about spyware in this game. So where do all these claims come from? One possible reason is an issue that popped up during the first couple of days of release where KLA services weren't being fully removed during uninstalls. The developers have since addressed this, and I've confirmed this in my own testing. Another reason could be the bias against Tencent, the game's parent company, due to Chinese ownership and its business practices. That's all too much to get into here though. Lastly, some users might have simply joined the trend of review bombing this new release, a baffling phenomenon in itself. With the drama hopefully addressed, let's move on and rank this beast. Overall, Delta Force delivers an exciting gameplay experience that feels familiar yet unique enough to stand on its own. While the game has its share of technical issues, an inaccessible in-game economy, and a sometimes frustrating UI, it's still a solid title. It's the kind of game you can jump into with friends, enjoy whichever game mode suits your playstyle, and leave feeling satisfied, provided you steer clear of the in-game store purchases. For these reasons, Delta Force earns a 7 out of 10, placing it firmly in A tier. If you're planning to play Delta Force, I've added the links below in the description. If you enjoyed the video or agree with the B tier rating, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button. And if you disagree, or if you have an idea for a free-to-play game you'd like me to review, let me know down in the comments. Palia is a social game with a big, open world where you can gather resources, craft, build your dream home, and make friends with NPCs and other players. It feels like a mix of popular games like Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, My Time at Portia, and Spirit of the Island. The game's story is set in a magical world where humans vanished thousands of years ago, until one day they started coming back. Is Palia's beautiful world and unique story enough to make it a top contender with these familiar titles? Or will its flaws make it stand out for all the wrong reasons? The first time I launched Palia, it took about 8 minutes to reach the title screen. That sounds long, and it is, but let me explain why. When you start the game, you have to create a Palia account. I'm not a fan of games that make you create extra accounts, but in this case there's a reason. The game is on Nintendo Switch and various PC gaming platforms like Steam, Epic, and through Palia's standalone launcher. So having a single account lets you sync your progress across these platforms. Once my account was set up, I logged in, made my character, and watched a short introduction video. After that, I talked to an NPC and followed the tutorial prompts to leave the area. Then the title screen finally showed up. This whole process, character creation, intro videos, basic tutorials, is pretty standard in games, so I can't really blame Palia for that. The good news, once your character is created, it takes less than a minute from hitting the play button on Steam to running around in the game world. Pretty fast, right? But there is a small catch when it comes to playing with friends. Inviting a friend to Palia is pretty easy, though it's not as simple as games with built-in Steam support. This is likely because you need a Palia account, so instead of using your Steam ID, you'll have to search for your friend using the in-game interface. That can get tricky if your friend uses a different gamertag than usual or picks something hard to type. Thankfully, text and voice chat on a variety of platforms makes this less of an issue. Still, it would be great to see Steam integration for players on that platform. I haven't confirmed if this is available or not on other platforms, but if it isn't, it should be. Once you've added a friend, you can send them a request to join your party, unless that little catch I mentioned earlier gets in the way. Like many games, even after the 8-minute intro, there's a tutorial you need to finish before you can accept party invites. This means that if you're starting a game with a friend for the first time, plan on spending about 15 or 20 minutes completing the tutorial before you can actually meet up in the game. After that, connecting with friends is smooth and straightforward. Palia offers a mix of objectives. Some are open-world activities, which I'll talk about later, while others follow a more linear path with ongoing quests. For example, you start by building a tent as your first home and placing furniture. This eventually leads to meeting someone who will give you building plans for a house. From there, you level up your mining and forging skills to unlock a smelter and sawmill recipes. Then you'll craft materials to build your house. You get the idea. Each quest flows into the next. This setup means that you don't have to worry about figuring out what to do next, keeping the game's directions simple and easy to follow. Even though the quest system is pretty simple, Palia has plenty of depth to keep players interested. One thing that really surprised me was the character creation screen. While there aren't a ton of categories to customize, the number of options in each category was kind of shocking, in a good way. In many games, you only get a few hairstyles or outfits unless you pay for extras, but in Palia, there are lots of choices in each category, so the world doesn't feel like it's full of identical players. After finishing the tutorial and starting quests, you'll discover other tasks tracked in your journal as accomplishments. There are over 120 accomplishments, and many of them have 3 to 5 levels, so there's a ton to do. Tasks range from simple things like collecting gold or mining to completing collections of fish or bugs. You can also build relationships with NPCs by chatting and giving gifts, or you can make friends with players in the game. Additionally, you can go hunting, tour other players' homes, garden, or try out tons of different crafting options. There's so much to do in this game, it's hard to get bored. In terms of replayability, I found something interesting. There doesn't appear to be a way to start over, a way to delete your character, and it looks like you can only have one character. Now, most people may not want to do that stuff anyway, and I can tell you that in the 2 hours I played of Palia, I only scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. However, I could see someone wanting these features to play different characters with different people, like a parent wanting to level up with their child, and then like another character to play with friends. The ability to delete a character so you can just start over if you feel like it would also be cool. You could argue for or against these features, but ultimately you can play with anyone you'd like regardless of where you're at in your own questline or your accomplishments, and because of that there's a lot of game to be played here. The storyline definitely moves you in a solid direction, and with all of the items I mentioned in terms of the game's depth, you'll be very busy for a long time. In addition, the developers have said, Palia has a deep, evolving story that we plan on telling with you for years to come. That's a very promising statement, which makes me excited for the game's future. Figuring out how many people are playing Palia isn't easy because it's available on different platforms and only Steam seems to share player stats. If anybody knows how to find player numbers for the different platforms, let me know in the comments because I couldn't track them down. As of the writing of this script, Steam shows nearly 5,600 active players, which is a decent sized player base. Interestingly, 2 articles, one from Games Industry and another from Sports Illustrated, reported that Palia had over 3 million players within 6 months. However, they didn't break down how many players were on each platform. Looking at Steam charts, the peak player count was 11,835 in April of 2024. This number has bounced around a bit, hitting 12,700 in September and dropping to about 9,800 in October. So while we don't know the total number of players, one thing is clear. Steam is definitely not Palia's main platform. Let's shift gears a bit and dive into some things that I think make Palia such an enjoyable experience. One thing I love in any multiplayer game is a friendly and helpful player base, and let's be real, that's rare these days. But in Palia, kindness and teamwork are encouraged right from the start. During my time in game, I saw players offering feedback, answering questions, and even reaching out in chat about events happening in the game world. Even if I didn't fully understand everything that was going on, it was amazing to see such a positive vibe. The world of Palia is absolutely stunning. The stylized art makes every part of the map feel fresh and exciting. From the NPCs to the villages and the landscapes in between, everything feels alive and unique. Unlike some other games where the world feels repetitive, Palia always gives you that sense that there's something new to discover. I was pleasantly surprised by the lack of aggressive microtransactions. Sure, there's a premium store, but I didn't even notice it until I stumbled upon it while browsing in-game shops. I'll dive into the premium market more a little later, but for now, let's just say it's refreshingly subtle. Finally, the story in Palia is fascinating. I haven't made it too far yet, but the concept is so cool. Humans vanished thousands of years ago, and now, out of nowhere, they're coming back. That's an incredible setup, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Because I've covered what makes Palia great, it's only fair to talk about some of the areas where the game falls short. First, credit to the developers for creating a gardening system that's different from what we usually see in games, but honestly, it's a bit frustrating. In most games, you prepare the ground with a simple slap of a hoe before planting seeds. In Palia, you have to quote-unquote paint the ground with your tool to prepare it, and it feels clunky and unnecessary for what should be a straightforward mechanic. Some players might enjoy this unique approach, but since gardening in most social sims is more of a set-it-and-forget-it activity, it feels a little out of place compared to the game's other smooth and familiar crafting and gathering systems. When you're ready to build your first house, you'll need 100 sapwood planks and 35 stone bricks. Crafting each plank takes 1 minute, and each brick takes 2 minutes. If you unlock the sawmill and the smelter at the same time, you're looking at about 1 hour and 40 minutes to craft everything. If not, it'll take nearly 3 hours to craft the materials one after the other. The good news, these items can be crafted offline, so you don't have to stand around waiting. The bad news? It feels strange that after crafting your tent as a temporary home, you're immediately tasked with building a house. Why have a temporary home if you're just going to move out so quickly? It'd be better to skip the tent altogether or make the house faster to build, unless of course you're really into camping, I guess. Finally, let's talk about Palia's premium store. Cosmetic items in games like Fortnite often range from $8 to $20, but those items often feature big-name collaborations like A-list celebrities or licensed vehicles. In Palia, most items are priced at about $8.50 or $16.50, which isn't terrible, until you see outfits priced at 3,400 coins or roughly $32.50 each. Some bundles cost 6,800 coins, meaning that you'll need to spend $65 to buy enough currency packs. While no one is forced to buy these items, this price feels steep, especially compared to what's offered. Sensible players may choose to vote with their wallets, and hopefully this feedback will lead to more reasonable pricing in the future. Overall, Palia is pure fun. Whether you're chopping down trees, smashing rocks, tackling quests, or building up your collections, there's no shortage of things to do. And that's just scratching the surface. The blend of unique storyline with the social sim genre creates an experience that's sure to captivate players of all ages. Add a few friends to the mix and you've got a perfect recipe for endless adventures and excitement. I can definitely see myself coming back to Palia to explore all its mysteries. It's a relaxing game you can play at your desk, on your TV, or even on the go with your Nintendo Switch or Steam Deck. Just keep in mind that some features on Steam Deck might not work perfectly, so your experience may vary depending on where you play. Aside from a few strange game mechanics and some pricey premium items, Palia was an amazing experience. I'd recommend it to just about anyone. That's why Palia earned a 10 out of 10, placing it in S tier. If you're thinking about trying Palia, I've added links to the store pages in the description. If you like this video or agree with the S tier rating, please hit that like button. If you disagree or have a free-to-play game you'd like me to review, share your thoughts in the comments. I've played Torchlight and Torchlight 2 before. Well, a little bit of the second one. But honestly, I don't remember much about them. Sure, the visuals stuck with me, but the gameplay, the characters, not so much. With the latest game in the series stirring up mixed reviews on Steam, I'll be diving in as someone who's basically starting fresh to answer the question, is Torchlight Infinite worth your time? Let's find out. Torchlight Infinite is a game you can play on your phone, tablet, or computer. Much like other dungeon crawling games, Torchlight Infinite starts with creating your character by picking a class and giving them a name. Each class has a short video explaining their abilities, but there's not a lot of extra info about the characters on the screen. For my playthrough, I chose the Ranger of Glory, a ranged class. One cool thing about Torchlight is how the servers work. You can join the current season server, which resets every 3 months, or the permanent server, which allows you to progress indefinitely. When a season ends, your character moves to the permanent server so you can keep playing,
or you can start fresh in the new season. There's also a hardcore mode where your character is gone forever if they die, except here they transfer to the permanent server when the season ends. Then there's solo self-found mode, which just means that your character can't use the trade house. I haven't played long enough to see how big of a deal that is though, so I can't really elaborate on it. Creating a character and jumping in doesn't take much time. After a quick cutscene, the real fun begins, whether that's hacking, slashing, shooting, or whatever attacks your class uses. Joining a friend in Torchlight is pretty easy. You just open the menu, type their in-game character name, and click the search button. This system isn't too unusual, especially if you're used to MMOs, but it could be a little more convenient. For example, the ability to link a Steam account so you could add a friend's account instead of keeping track of each character they create would be awesome. Oh, and to the random stranger I accidentally sent a friend request to, sorry about that, I was just testing the search feature. If you've played a dungeon crawler before, you know the drill. Defeat enemies, grab loot, and start planning your endgame build in a spreadsheet. But seriously, getting around the world in Torchlight Infinite is super simple thanks to the mission tracker on the left side of the screen. As you finish missions, they disappear and new ones pop up right away. The tracker doesn't just tell you what to do, it even tells you where to go. You can click on it and it'll give you a path to follow. I do have one small complaint about this feature, but I'll save that for later in the video. When it comes to dungeon crawlers, one big question is whether the game has enough depth to keep players interested. Some people like to dive into the story, try out different characters, run side quests, and explore every part of the game. Others play dungeon crawlers more like cookie clicker, rushing through to get the best gear, perfect their builds, and only focus on endgame content. Torchlight Infinite seems to have plenty of depth for all types of players. With new seasonal content added every 3 months, a level cap of 100, and multiple character classes to choose from, there's a lot to do. Of course, your experience might depend on how you like to play. As for me, I'm the type who likes to enjoy the story and try out new characters. After 2 hours of playing, my Ranger of Glory is only level 19, so I've still got a lot more to explore. There's not much more to say about the gameplay and replayability in Torchlight given everything that I've already covered. With the new seasons every 3 months, a high level cap, multiple character classes, and different game modes, there's plenty to keep you busy. On top of that, each class can be customized in different ways, so there's always something new to try. When I first started playing, the 30-day player peak was only around 1,000, but I'll be honest, it took me a while to start the script, and so by the time I actually checked in again, the 30-day player peak had grown to over 13,000, with more than 5,900 people actively playing. But these numbers only included Steam players since I got the data from SteamDB. It's worth noting that player numbers tend to drop over time and then bounce back every few months. This makes sense if Torchlight Infinite releases new content every 3 months. My guess is that players come back to try the new content, finish it, and then take a break until the next update. The pattern doesn't perfectly line up with that though, because sometimes it does stretch to about 4 months. Either that or maybe the developers can't get updates out exactly on the 3-month mark. I can't say for sure on either theory, but that's just my take on it. If you play the game regularly and happen to know why this is, let me know down in the comments. Regardless, even when the player numbers were lower during my gameplay, the community felt active in chat, so even if you're playing solo, you won't feel like you're completely alone. The anime-inspired, cartoonish style of the 2D assets combined with the stylized 3D environments makes Torchlight Infinite a stunning game. Every area feels carefully crafted, and the seamless flow between missions keeps the gameplay moving smoothly. For new or casual players, the Pro Builds feature is a lifesaver. There are pre-made builds created by other players that automatically set up your character's skills. This lets you focus on combat instead of worrying about all the details in a character spreadsheet. As for microtransactions, they didn't feel overwhelming or intrusive, at least not in the early game. Compared to other titles I've played, this was a welcome change. That said, I can't say for sure if this changes later on as you progress further. Interacting with objects or NPCs requires you to press the D key by default, while picking up items uses the A key. This can be a bit annoying since you're using 2 different keys for interactions. The only reason I can think of this setup is to prevent accidental item pickup when you're near an object, portal, or NPC. Still, it seems unnecessary since you can just recycle unwanted items in your inventory anyway. This next point isn't really a dislike, it's more of a personal preference, but I think it's something worth mentioning. When you click the mission tracker, it shows the path on the ground, but the path doesn't lead all the way to the mission marker on the map. I'm not sure how this works exactly, but it seems like either the path is incomplete or it disappears after a set time. In other MMOs and RPGs, I've appreciated having the full path so I always know where I'm going. However, I do get that some players prefer no markers. It's something that's going to come down to your taste. The first time I played the game, I couldn't figure out how to close it. Eventually, I gave up and used Alt F4. After searching online, I figured out how to exit properly, and I have to say, it's one of the worst UI designs I've seen. You have to open the settings menu, click Other, and then scroll down to find the logout option. Something as basic as exiting a game shouldn't be this hard. As you explore levels, most enemies are super easy to defeat with one hit. Some tougher mini-boss style enemies take more effort but are still manageable. However, when you reach the level's final boss, the difficulty spikes dramatically. While bosses are supposed to be harder, most games make standard enemies tougher as you progress, which wasn't the case here. This gives the player a false sense of accomplishment and then completely destroys them. There's a lot to learn in this game. You need to level up different types of abilities and paths, but it's not always clear how they work. For new players, it can feel overwhelming. A more detailed tutorial to explain the game's systems would make it easier to understand and make the game more enjoyable. Lastly, the voice acting in this game feels cheesy. It seems like they were going for a classic RPG style of audio, with characters being overly dramatic in their delivery. But instead of sounding believable, it sounds like a friend reading lines about the fate of Ember technology, without much emotion. To be fair, not all the voice acting is bad, but enough of it stands out to be noticeable.
I traveled alone to the Dwarven Kingdom by orders from the benevolent Archbishop Derek to complete a task he asked of me. But I soon realized that the dwarves here are absolutely irrational.
In my opinion, Torchlight Infinite is just as fun as the other games in the series, at least from what I can remember. It offers a wide variety of characters, giving you plenty of ways to play. The early game progression feels smooth and satisfying, and the art style makes the game absolutely stunning. Dungeon crawlers fall into a unique category for me. I really have to be in the mood to play them. It's the same with MMOs, puzzle games, and a few other genres, but when that mood hits, I'm definitely coming back to Torchlight Infinite to continue my journey as a Ranger of Glory. Sorry, Diablo. Overall, Torchlight Infinite offers a solid experience with plenty of depth, a variety of characters, and an art style that makes the game visually stunning. The progression is enjoyable and the community feels active, even if the player numbers can dip from time to time. While there are a few small annoyances, like the need for different keys for interactions and the quirky mission path system, these don't take away from the fun. Plus, the game's Pro Builds feature is a great way for new players to jump in the action without having to worry too much about character setups. That's why Torchlight Infinite gets a score of 8 out of 10, placing it in A tier. If you're thinking about trying Torchlight Infinite, I've added links to the store pages in the description. If you like this video or agree with the A tier rating, please hit the like button. If you have a free-to-play game in mind that you'd like me to review, or you plan to play Torchlight Infinite, let me know down in the comments. Ever played a shooter and felt overwhelmed by too many operators, weapons, and mechanics? Do games like Battlefield or Call of Duty leave you lost in the chaos? If you want all the action without the clutter, then this might be the perfect game for you. Polygon is an FPS inspired by Battlefield, but takes a simpler, more fun approach. It ditches the complicated mechanics for easy controls, a slick low-poly art style, and an atmosphere that keeps things light. Jumping into a game is quick and easy. Just hit the battle button to join a random match, or click the multiplayer tab to choose a server from the list. Want to start your own match? If you have a VIP membership, you can create your own matches. I'll explain more about that in a bit. Joining a friend is super easy. Just click the squad button and pick someone from your Steam friends list. They'll get an invite through chat, and once they accept, they'll join your team, putting you in charge as the squad leader. Right now, Polygon has 2 game modes, Conquest and King of the Hill. Each server supports up to 32 players, but according to the Steam store page, that number will eventually go up to 64. In King of the Hill, both teams have one spawn point and battle for control of a single spot on the map. In Conquest, teams fight to control different positions on the map. One cool feature in Polygon is its tutorial. Unlike other games that force you through a long, unskippable lesson, this one's short and optional. It's a quick video, and if you watch it, you get 3,000 in-game currency to spend on weapons and attachments. That's a great bonus for experienced players who don't need a tutorial, and a useful intro for players who just want to learn the basics fast. Some might say that playing through a tutorial is the best way to learn, but I think most gamers would agree being able to skip it is a huge plus. A game like this doesn't need a deep story. It's all about fast-paced, chaotic multiplayer fun. Sure, there's no single-player campaign or co-op mode, but the real question is, how much fun can you have, and what keeps you coming back? If you've ever played Battlefield or Call of Duty, you know the drill. Most players finish the campaign in a few hours or skip it entirely so they can dive straight into the multiplayer. And that's where the real action is. FPS games thrive on replay value, and while Polygon doesn't have a deep, impactful story, it more than makes up for it with the endless multiplayer mayhem. Like any multiplayer game, no two matches in Polygon are ever the same. One around your strategy might work perfectly, another not so much. Some games you'll go up against tough opponents while others might feel like a breeze. This constant variety keeps each match feeling fresh and exciting, making you want to jump in again and again. At the time of this video, there were just over 500 players online, and that number has grown since last month. Looking at past data, the monthly peaks have stayed between 570 and 900 players, showing a solid and consistent player base. It'll be exciting to see how this game grows and what it can become in the next few years. There's a lot to like about this game, but a few things really stand out. I've touched on some already, but here are the main highlights. First, the weapons are great. Each gun has a slightly different feel, but you don't need hours of practice to be effective. During my playthrough, I only had access to a few weapons, but switching between them felt natural and easy. The visuals are awesome. Daytime maps are bright and colorful, while nighttime maps add variety without changing the gameplay. The game blends low poly and stylized assets to create a unique look. If you're into game development, you might recognize some of the assets from the Cinti Asset Store. But don't worry, this isn't just an asset flip. Of all the Steam games I've played using Cinti assets, this one stands out as one of the best. It pulls you into the action so well that you're not thinking about the assets, you're just having fun. Plus, the developers have customized them enough to make the game feel unique. The interface is really clean. Nothing is hidden or confusing, and it reminds me of classic Battlefield and Call of Duty menus, before they became a cluttered mess. From the moment you log in, everything is easy to understand and straightforward. Of course, like any other online game, you'll run into players accusing others of hacking or those who are just being rude. Unfortunately, this is part of multiplayer gaming. But overall, the community seems pretty chill. In my experience, players were helpful, answering questions, sharing enemy locations, and keeping the team focused. It's a nice change from the usual online chaos. I've been pretty positive about Polygon so far, but it's not without its flaws. The game's sound design is mostly solid. Footsteps are easy to hear, a must in any multiplayer shooter, and gunfire is clear depending on how close you are. Some maps feel a little too quiet in terms of ambient noise, but that's a minor issue. The bigger problem? Grenades. Unless you actually see one, there's no sound to warn you when it lands nearby. A simple sound cue or an indicator would make a huge difference. Speaking of grenades, throwing them isn't as smooth as shooting. They don't always land where you expect, and it takes practice to get them into tight spots. A throwing arc or making the throw line up better with the crosshair like in other shooters would improve this mechanic. Another issue is the iron sights on certain guns. When tracking a moving target, the sights can block too much of your view, making it harder to aim. You can fix this by adding an optic, but that leads to another problem. Unlocking attachments and new weapons takes time. Gun XP and cash come in slowly, and you need to hit a certain player level before you can unlock new guns. While this kind of grind isn't unusual in FPS games, it can feel a bit slow. Now let's talk about the Battle Pass and microtransactions. Polygon doesn't push microtransactions too hard, which is nice. The Battle Pass costs 3,000 crowns, or about $750 US, and gives you skins, some crowns back, and even VIP days if you complete it. You can also pay 6,000 crowns, or about $15, to unlock the first 20 levels instantly. The downside? There's no clear end date for the Battle Pass in the game. You have to join the developer's Discord to find out when the season ends. Adding a visible timer to the game would be a huge improvement. Then there's VIP, which some players will love and others might not. VIP gives big boosts like extra XP for soldiers, weapons, and credits, plus the ability to create your own match. You can buy VIP for different time periods like 1 day, 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, or 360 days, with prices ranging from $1.30 to $32.50. If you want both VIP and the Battle Pass, it could cost you up to $36.50. Some players may see VIP as a way to speed up the grind, which is helpful if you don't have a lot of time to play. Others might see it as pay to win. Everyone has access to the same items, but non-VIP players will have to grind longer to unlock them. So what do you think? Is a paid XP boost pay to win, or just a way to save time? Let me know down in the comments. Even though Polygon is still in early access, it feels surprisingly complete. The only thing that really gives it that unfinished feel is the limited number of game modes and maps. Honestly, if the early access banner wasn't on the store page, I wouldn't even question it. I just assume it's an indie developer working with limited resources, as most are, focusing on adding more maps, modes, and weapons over time. Polygon is definitely a game I see myself coming back to. I know this because I've already been playing it for hours since finishing the script for this video. Don't worry, this review is still based on my first 2 hours, but honestly, I don't think my opinion would change. If I compare Polygon to Battlefield 2042, I'll say that Battlefield has improved since launch, and I enjoy playing it. But with Polygon, the gameplay is smooth and it's easy to pick up. There's no steep learning curve with weapons, which some might see as a downside, but for others, it's a plus. It makes the game feel more like a fun, arcade-style shooter without all the complexity that some AAA titles are known for. Some players just want a game they can jump in and enjoy, and Polygon delivers on that front, no question. Let's get down to the final score. Even though Polygon lost a point for having a few dislikes and for lacking depth, it really excelled in every other area. That's why Polygon earns an 8 out of 10, putting it in A tier. If you're thinking about trying Polygon, I've added the links to the store in the description. If you like this video or agree with the A tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Polygon, let me know down in the comments. I'm about to tell you something that might shock you. I'm angry about Marvel Rivals. But not because my favorite hero isn't in the game, it's not about microtransactions, and it definitely isn't because the game is bad. I'm angry because I didn't play it sooner. I know, it sounds like a weird thing to be upset about, right? But let me explain how I got to this point starting from the moment you launch the game. Getting into a match on your own is fast, about 90 seconds if you skip the intro video. If you want to play with friends, it's just as easy, and adding a friend doesn't take much longer. What's awesome about Marvel Rivals is that each match feels fast. Most of mine lasted between 7 and 9 minutes, meaning if you only have a short time to game, or if you just want to play a couple of matches, you can jump in and out without a big time commitment. This is huge for people with busy schedules. Teaming up with your friends is super simple. Just click on the friends icon in the top right corner, or click the plus sign under your character name. From there, you can search your friend's name and right-click on them to see a bunch of options, like inviting them to your group, requesting to join them, checking their career stats, adding them as a friend, or even spectate them. You can even block or report them, but you may want to stay away from those last two options since it'll make it a little bit harder to play together. The great thing about Marvel Rivals is that it's easy to pick up no matter which character you're playing as. But before I get into that, let me tell you about the tutorials. There are 5 different tutorial paths you can follow to learn how the game works. There's a basic one to show you the gameplay, a hero tutorial to teach you the unique abilities of each hero, and game mode tutorials for domination and convoy. These tutorials make sure that you're not lost when you start playing. On top of those options, there's a practice range, but there's an even better option to get a feel for things. It's a separate mode called Practice vs. AI. It allows you to play bots at your chosen difficulty, giving you the feel of a real match. If you skip the tutorials though, don't worry. The objectives of each match are shown in the top left corner, and there's helpful markers and indicators throughout so you'll always know what's going on. The game doesn't have a traditional story, but does include seasonal events. Seasonal events consist of multiple missions that ultimately complete the larger goal and offers rewards for completing them. In addition to seasonal events, there are daily missions and challenges. Challenges range from a couple of days to more than a month, as where daily challenges are, well, daily. There's also a battle pass in Rivals that allows players to unlock items with chrono tokens as they progress. However, some items are locked behind the luxury battle pass. The standard version of the pass is 990 lattice, which is the game's premium currency. That's roughly $10 US. You can also opt for another version of the luxury pass for 2800 lattice, which is about $20, and this will also give you 2800 chrono tokens as well as a 20% chrono token acquisition bonus. Chrono tokens are what allow you to unlock items from within the battle pass. Since we've already talked about 2 of the 3 in-game currencies, we might as well talk about the last one, units. Units allow you to purchase bundles from the store that include items like skins, emotes, nameplates, and some other items. Lattice, chrono tokens, and units all have a 1-to-1 exchange rate, and you can purchase additional units or chrono tokens using Lattice. Achievements are kind of like missions in that you're trying to do a particular task, more than once in some cases. Upon completion, you unlock the badge for that achievement and collect a small prize on top of it. You also receive achievement points for each category on the achievements page, and this allows you to track your overall progress. As for player level progression, you do level up, but the level itself doesn't affect gameplay much. Reaching level 10 unlocks rank gameplay, and level 20 gets you an achievement, but otherwise there's not really a huge impact from player level as far as I can tell. Marvel Rivals keeps players coming back with seasonal events, challenges, and achievements. If you like grinding, the daily missions and Battle Pass rewards will keep you busy. Tournaments let factions, basically guilds or clans, compete for prize money and in-game items. Since I'm new to the game, I don't know much about tournaments yet. Team-up abilities are an awesome way to make your team stronger. If you check the team-up section under the Heroes menu, you'll see which heroes can team up for special moves. For example, Scarlet Witch can infuse Chaos Energy into Magneto's Greatsword, letting him unleash its full power. There are tons of team-ups, so check them all out in the menu or give them a try in the practice mode. There are lots of game modes to try like Doom Match or Conquest, which are Deathmatch and Team Deathmatch respectively. A limited time mode swaps out regularly, but the main attractions are Quick Match and Competitive, where you can play Convoy, Domination, or Convergence. You can also create custom games, which could be fun for LAN parties or small tournaments with friends. Remember when I said it's easy to jump in as nearly any character? Well, at the time of this video there are 37 heroes in game. In my 2 hours of gameplay, I tried 14 different characters. I had very limited time with Penny Parker and Bruce Banner, so I can't comment on them too much. However, I played Bruce Banner for 2 minutes and didn't enjoy it. Maybe I need more practice, but it just felt bad. Storm was the only character that actually confused me. I wasn't sure what I was doing half the time. But for the other 11, I had a blast and playing them felt natural. Of all the games I've reviewed so far, Rivals has by far the biggest player base. Right now there are over 316,000 players with a 24-hour peak of 344,000. There was a big drop in players over the last month, but a new update on February 21st brought some of those players back. Keep in mind these numbers are just for Steam. Rivals is also available on PlayStation, Xbox, and the Epic Game Store, so the actual player count is much higher. There are so many things to like about Rivals, and I could spend all day talking about it. I won't, because you wouldn't watch this whole video if I did, so I'll narrow it down to a few that matter in a free-to-play game. The art style is absolutely beautiful. This probably isn't shocking to anyone because it's a modern game and it has Marvel's art behind it, so of course it's going to look great. The menus are easy to use. There's no guesswork that goes into figuring out where to go or what to do next. I didn't feel any pressure at any point to buy into microtransactions, but like I said earlier, I'm not a super fan of the Marvel Universe. Fortnite, on the other hand, has gotten me a bunch of times with their licensed vehicle skins though, so others may feel differently about this. If you're playing Rivals and you've been spending money on skins or the Battle Pass, let me know down in the comments. Like I mentioned earlier, it's really easy to jump in as pretty much any character. It didn't take long to get acquainted with them, and for the ones that cause a little confusion or frustration, the tutorial and practice areas provide a great way to figure it out on your own time. Most of all, I just had fun regardless of which character I was playing. Before we get into the dislikes, I should point out that I'm not a huge Marvel fan. I've watched a few Marvel movies and played a few games, but I'm looking at this more from the view of a gamer, not a superhero fan. When I first started the game, I had an issue where the game would lock up as soon as I got into a match. I looked it up and it seems like a lot of other people had similar issues. Shout out to AntimatterXU on Reddit, hopefully I said that right, who recommended clearing cache in the DX cache folder. That fixed the problem, but it's weird that these issues haven't been officially addressed yet, or at least that's how it seems. Aside from that, I couldn't actually find anything else I disliked about this game. Even if I were to get super nitpicky about Rivals, I would struggle to find things wrong with it. I'm sure there are pain points that I'm missing here, so if you're playing this already and you have some complaints that you want to share about this game, make sure to leave them in the comments below. I'm always curious about other people's perspectives on the games I review. Rivals is the game I didn't know I needed. From the moment I started playing until I stopped to work on this video, I was hooked. Except for the crashes. It gave me a level of excitement for gaming that I haven't felt in a long time. If you haven't been able to tell by the entirety of this video, I love everything about this game. That's why I'm angry I didn't play it sooner. Sometimes I'll look at games and because they don't fit into my usual genres, I just assume I won't like them. That's why making these videos is so much fun. It forces me to play new games that I was putting on the back burner or maybe wouldn't have played at all. And in this case, I found an absolute banger of a game that I intend on playing quite a bit of. I don't think I can give this game any more praise, and that's why Marvel Rivals scores a 10 out of 10. It's clearly an S-tier game, but more importantly, something about this game just captured my heart. That sounds really cheesy for a game review, but I can honestly say I haven't been this excited for a new game in a long time. If you're thinking about trying Marvel Rivals, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the S-tier rating, hit that like button. If If you have a free-to-play game in mind that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Marvel Rivals, let me know down in the comments. Fragpunk is a brand new 5v5 shooter similar to Valorant and Counter-Strike, and it's weird because I played my first match and it kind of brought back memories of Brink, if anybody remembers that from 2011. More specifically the visuals though, not necessarily the gameplay. What really makes Fragpunk different is its shard cards, which let players change the rules of each match. But is this a game-changing feature, or just a flashy gimmick? Let's find out. The first time you log in, there's an intro video, a terms of use agreement to accept, and you need to link an account to NetEase Games. This could be a Steam, Google, or Facebook account. Once that's done, you're dropped into a tutorial. I didn't skip the tutorial because I wanted to learn the game, and so it took about 6 minutes. A couple of things to note. The intro video covers the loading shader screen that everybody loves so much in modern gaming. Also, you can skip the tutorial if you want. Once you're set up, finding a match is fast. Most games start within seconds, though Outbreak mode, which I'll get to in a little bit, took a few minutes, probably because it's not as popular. Joining a friend is simple. If you're friends on Steam, you can send them an invite through the Steam tab. Otherwise, just type their name into the search, add them, and invite them. Figuring out each match's objective is kind of tricky to talk about because I have mixed feelings. Personally, I think each mode makes sense and is pretty easy to understand, but I also took the time to read the description before jumping in, so I knew what to do. It felt like some players didn't do that, and they seemed confused on what was going on. That made things frustrating because our team wasn't as good as it could have been. For example, Glue Knight Grab is like Call of Duty's Kill Confirmed, but instead of picking up dog tags after a frag, you pick up Glue Knight. But I saw players on both teams getting frags and then just walking away from the Glue Knight, and it wasn't because there were more enemies around, they just seemed like they didn't know what to do. At the end of the match, you can see I grabbed most of the Glue Knight for our team. The top 2 players on the leaderboard had almost 10 more kills than me, but they barely picked up any. Well, second place got half as much as I did, so that's something, I guess. Anyway, that's just an example. Let's move on. Fragpunk has daily, weekly, and seasonal challenges that give you rewards for completing tasks. There's also porcelain hunting, which is another set of challenges that gives you rewards, plus porcelain, which you can use on things like weapon skins. It kind of looks like a seasonal event, but I couldn't find anything about a time limit other than the day 1 through day 7 buttons on the porcelain hunting screen. So I'm not sure if it's a permanent challenge or if it changes over time. You're also rewarded for achievements, which are tier challenges that you accomplish over time. Story challenges allow you to unlock more of Fragpunk's story. I have to admit the intro video was a bit confusing because it didn't offer a lot of information into what was going on, and seemingly there's no other information to discover in the menus other than the story challenges. Story challenges unlock newspaper-esque articles that provide some additional details around the game's story, as well as magazines that provide insight into Lancers. Speaking of Lancers, this might be a good time to talk about them. Each character in the game is called a Lancer. They have their own unique abilities, levels, and backstories, but they can use any weapon they want, unless shard cards get in the way. Shard cards let you change the rules of each match. Some give you team bonuses like extra ammo, healing teammates with friendly fire, or moving faster. Others make things harder for the enemy team by removing a target site, making one foggy, or even making their heads bigger so they're easier to hit. There are 169 shard cards in the standard clash mode right now, so there's a lot of variety. The main game mode in Fragpunk is called Shard Clash. Everyone can play in the standard mode, but once you reach level 30, you unlock advanced standard and ranked modes. Besides Shard Clash, there's an arcade mode with different ways to play. Battle rotation changes every 15 minutes and includes Team Deathmatch, Free-for-All, and Glue Knight Grab. Arcade rotation switches every 72 hours and has modes like Melee Deathmatch, Mirror Clash, Sniper Deathmatch, Capture the Core, and Chaos Clash. Lastly, if you want to practice, there are 2 training modes, or you can set up a custom game to play with friends. I didn't have time to try every mode, but for the ones I did play, they were a lot of fun. On March 8th, just 2 days after Fragpunk's release, its 24-hour peak hit a little over 85,000 players. I've already mentioned that Fragpunk's core gameplay is similar to Valorant and Counter-Strike, but when it comes to player numbers, wow, what a difference. At the time I checked, Counter-Strike's 24-hour peak was 1.7 million, about 15 times higher. For Valorant, data from tracker.gg showed nearly 6 million players tracked that day, though it didn't list the peak player count. Either way, that's a huge difference. There's a lot to like about Fragpunk, and I want to highlight some of the things that the game does really well. Shard cards add a ton of variety to each match. In one game, I spawned with only a knife, and at first I was confused, and then I realized the enemy team had played a card that made that happen. I wasn't ready for it, so I died pretty fast, but surprises like that keep the game interesting and make you think about how to get back at the enemy next round. Each Lancer has unique abilities, and they're all fun to play.
Some are easy to understand while others take a little bit of practice, but that's where the training area really helps. I didn't spend much time in there, but it was enough time to figure out how certain lancers work. It's important to be flexible too, because if you're not quick, someone on your team might pick your favorite lancer before you do. The game runs really well. On my system with a 7950X, 64GB of DDR5, and an RTX 4080, I was getting anywhere from 200 to 400 FPS on epic settings. That's with DLSS 4 set to balanced and frame gen turned off. We're so used to newly released games these days having performance issues, but I didn't run into any performance issues at all, which is awesome. The highlights feature is great, especially if you like sharing clips. It automatically puts all of your kills from a match into one video. If you get multiple kills in a row, it makes special multi-frag clips. I've seen this in other games before, but not often. It's super useful for content creators or anyone who just wants to share these cool moments. In fact, if you're watching this, you can check out the YouTube shorts I uploaded with some of my top moments. After you're done with this video, of course. I'll link them in the description. Finally, the number of game modes is awesome. Almost every game mode I played was fun, except for one, which I'll get to in a second. I also love the rotating playlists, with one changing every 15 minutes and the other every 72 hours. It gives you plenty of options without splitting the player base too much, which can be a problem if modes rotate too slowly, like, every week or every month. Now let's talk about the game mode I didn't like, Outbreak. In this mode, Lancers try to hold off the infected, but if they take too much damage, they become infected. The problem is that it felt almost impossible to survive. Even fighting off just one infected was tough, let alone more. On top of that, I think part of the map might have been bugged. There was a jump that only a couple of players could land, but no matter how many times I tried it, I just couldn't make it. So either it was a bug that some players were exploiting, or it was meant to work that way. But if that's the case, it seems like it should have been easier to access like all of the other areas of the map. Since it was the highest spot on the map, I don't think players were supposed to be up there. Another thing that could be improved is the time between rounds. It moves fast. If you're not already familiar with the shard cards, each lancer, and every weapon, it's hard to get everything done before the next round starts. You can also check the enemy team's shard cards during this time, but if you miss it, they only flash on screen for about 3 seconds before the match begins. That's not much time, especially with over 160 cards in standard play. If you don't already know what they do, it's tough to keep up. Rewards are another mixed bag. It's nice to earn rewards just by playing, but like a lot of free-to-play games these days, there's just way too many different screens for claiming them. Honestly, it's annoying. It'd be so much better if all rewards were in one place instead of spread across multiple menus. Right now, I have little gift icons popping up all over the place, which just makes it feel cluttered. Speaking of menus, navigation is a mess. There are too many different sections, redemption menus, quest menus, gameplay menus, and extra things to click on that aren't even under a menu at all. It feels like developers are doing this on purpose, probably to play on gamers' FOMO on bonuses and rewards, which is how they get them to check every screen. But from a gamer's perspective, it's frustrating. I'd much rather spend my time playing the game instead of digging through menus. I really enjoyed my time with Fragpunk. It's not a genre I play often, but I had a lot of fun with it. The shard cards were a unique twist that I don't really remember seeing in any other games, unless you count Big Heads and GoldenEye. It was interesting to have to adjust to the cards played against us while also having to plant the device or defend each point. There's also a fun little surprise if both teams are tied at the start of the 7th round, but I won't spoil it. You'll have to play the game and find out for yourself. The last question I always try to answer in these reviews is, would I come back to this game? Fragpunk makes this a tough one. The game is fun solo, and I bet it would be even better with friends. If your squad isn't already hooked on a 5v5 shooter, or you just want to, break from your usual game, you'll definitely have fun for a few rounds. But here's the thing. Games like Valorant and Counter-Strike already have a dedicated player base. I can picture someone who plays Valorant telling their friends to check out this new game, and those friends just laughing before going right back to playing Valorant. That's the challenge Fragpunk faces. It's good to see player numbers holding steady after a few days, but they're not really growing, and that could be a problem. With such strong competition in this genre, I have to put myself in the shoes of somebody who is likely playing another game like Valorant or Counter-Strike. If I were to suggest Fragpunk as an alternative, I would run the risk of my friends roasting me for it. That's why I don't think I would come back to Fragpunk. Overall, it's a fun game, but it's up against some tough competition. It could be a great way for players to try 5v5 arena games, but with bigger and more popular options out there, it needs to do even more to stand out. That's why Fragpunk gets a 7 out of 10, putting it in A tier. If you're thinking about trying Fragpunk, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the A tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Fragpunk, let me know down in the comments. I've played a lot of MMOs over the years. Some great, some not so great.
I've spent time in World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Rift, Albion Online, and the game that took up years of my life, Dark Age of Camelot. I could keep listing them, but that's not the point. The point is, I know what makes an MMO fun. I've seen what players love, what they hate, and what keeps them coming back. And today we're looking at Tarisland, a game that seems to have none of those things. Jumping into the game was pretty easy. I just linked my Google account and I was ready to go. The only annoying part? It doesn't seem to remember you. It forces you to pick your account in a browser window every time you log in. At least it did with a Google account. I like to watch the intro videos in these reviews to get a sense of the story, but this one didn't explain much. After that, I picked a realm, which is really just the server location, and I moved on to the character selection. Tarisland has the usual character types: warrior, barbarian, mage, paladin, and so on. I ended up choosing the priest. After some quick customizations and picking a name, I was off to the tutorial. And yes, you can skip it, but I like to play through them in these reviews just so I can get a better feel for the game. Right away I noticed something strange. I was already level 18. Oh, and for some reason the game used my Google profile image for my character. Weird choice. But that wasn't the only weird thing. There's something else I need to talk about, but first let's see what it's like to team up with a friend. Grouping up with friends works like it does in most MMOs. You just type their name into the search bar to search for them. But fair warning, the search is case sensitive, so if your friend has a wild name full of random capitals, good luck finding them. Once you do find them, you can send a friend request, and if they accept, you're all set. From there, you can invite them to your team or ask to join theirs, and just like that, your adventure together begins. In most MMOs, when you have a quest, it's presented in one of two ways. The first, which is common in classic MMOs, gives you the name of an NPC or an enemy you need to find along with a general location, like a city or an area just outside of one. This leaves some guesswork for the player, but isn't too hard to figure out. The second method, used in newer MMOs like Tarisland, puts the quest right on your screen and guides you directly to your next objective. Both systems work depending on your playstyle, but a game's objective should be more than just how to complete a quest. The real question is, why am I completing these quests? What do I or the game world gain from them? Those are the questions I wasn't able to answer, and it started from the very beginning. Let's go back to the tutorial. Starting at level 18 felt weird, but even stranger, by the time I finished it, I was level 41. Most MMOs drop you into a starting city with nothing. No gear, no backstory, just a chance to explore, meet NPCs, and figure out why you're here. This kind of setup helps the players connect with the world and gives them a reason to fight. But Tarisland skips all that. Instead, it just throws you straight into questing without any real purpose. It's like going to a friend's house to watch a movie, but they started in the middle. You have no idea what's going on, so it's hard to care. So even if the gameplay is fun, Tarisland never gives you a reason to be invested. Worse yet, when you start looking at the game's mechanics and features, there's nothing that really makes it stand out from other MMOs. You could argue that any MMO offers plenty of gameplay and replayability, but with Tarisland, I'd argue the opposite. Without a deep or meaningful backstory, at least for new players, it's hard to feel connected. The whole time I was clicking my mouse or tapping keys, one question kept popping into my head. Why am I doing this? After finishing a quest, my character would immediately hop on a mount or start running to the next objective, without me controlling it. In most MMOs, there's a natural pause after a fight, a moment to explore, regroup, or just take in the world. Tarisland skips that entirely. Instead, it just pushes you from one task to the next, making exploration feel pointless. At times, it felt less like a game and more like an interactive cutscene, a visual novel with some game-like elements thrown in. Maybe some of this can be tweaked in the settings, but honestly, given that this game was meant to be cross-platform with mobile, I don't think a settings change will fix the core problems with it. And that's because no one is playing this game. In the last 24 hours, Tarisland peaked at just 37 players. Looking back to its Steam launch in October of 2024, there was a small spike in players, but even then the numbers were low. Since then, the average peak player count has dropped to just a few dozen. This is usually the part where I talk about what I liked about the game, but honestly, Tarisland was painful to play. I didn't enjoy it at all. The nicest thing I can say is that the stylized characters and environments look nice, but even that comes with a catch. In cutscenes, both the character and the world look great, but the moment the gameplay starts, there's a huge disconnect between the quality of the player models and the environment around them. Instead of being immersive, it's just distracting. I've already mentioned some of the issues with Tarisland. Starting at level 41, the automatic movement between quests, and the odd graphical inconsistencies. But the problems don't stop there. For one, the NPC text bubbles are a mess. Words get cut off because they don't fit on the same line, making it frustrating if you want to read the dialogue instead of listening to the voice acting. Fixing this with dynamic resizing of chat bubbles would have been a basic design decision, but clearly it wasn't. Then there's the snowboarding. Yes, snowboarding, in a fantasy MMO. A couple of quests had me using a snowboard as a traversal mechanic, and I have no idea why. Maybe a dev was really into SSX Tricky that month, but even if snowboarding could fit in an RPG, the mechanics here were bland and added nothing to the experience. And finally, there's one issue that stood out most. Remember when I mentioned my Google account image was showing up in the game? Well, it gets worse. When you log in, the game also displays your full Google account profile name on screen. For most people, this might not be a big deal, but for content creators or streamers who want to keep their real names private, this is a serious problem. You could argue that streamers already put themselves out there, but what about kids who don't realize this is happening? Exposing real names unnecessarily creates a risk of stalking or harassment, and worst of all, it adds nothing to the game. It's just bad design. Tarzland wasn't fun, and by now I'm sure you figured that out. But since one of the categories I rank games on is their fun factor, I have to say it again. This game just isn't enjoyable. If you've been playing Tarzland for a while and feel differently, let me know down in the comments. I'm extremely curious to hear your thoughts. I also don't plan on returning to Tarzland. There's no update, patch, or content that developers could add that would make me interested enough to come back to this game. Because the only thing I can credit Tarzland for is getting into the game quickly and the fact that it's easy to invite a friend, Tarzland only scores a 2 out of 10, placing it in F tier. Had I not been playing this game for a review video, I can honestly say I would have quit after a few minutes. I was really waiting for it to get better, but the fun never came.
I saw a
Bad game.
once. I didn't know until halfway in. The
Fun.
never came. The
Fun.
never came. I am freaking out.
If for some reason you're still thinking about trying Tarzland, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the F tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Tarzland, let me know down in the comments. When I saw a battle royale game that lets you play as the little green soldiers that some of us grew up with in the 90s, I was really excited. Really, the entire map was a trip down nostalgia lane, and whether you had some of these toys or not, it's a total blast from the past. So being amongst them surely has to be fun, right? Let's find out in today's game, Mini Royale. Mini Royale puts you right into the tutorial. Most of the controls feel like other shooters, but there are some cool movement mechanics that are a bit different. You'll want to try those out because once you join a real match, some players already have them mastered. In this battle royale, you can play solo, duo, or trio. You can also choose between first person and third person. One thing I notice is if you try to play in third person, you might be waiting for a long time. In my case, I only got matched up with one other person. You can vote to add bots, but it's still a slow start. In first person though, matches usually begin pretty fast. In Deathmatch, the game loaded quickly, but I have a complaint that I'll talk about in just a bit. In Color Conquest, I was waiting a while before the match started, and it didn't seem to be a very popular game mode. Since there were so few players in the lobby, we voted to add bots to our session. Joining friends in Mini Royale isn't hard, but I don't get why it's not easier. After refreshing my screen, I managed to see my friend online. I didn't think I had to add them since they were already in my friends list, but with crossplay in this game, I wasn't sure what would happen. Just to be safe, I had my friend use my friend code to add me, but nothing happened. We tried inviting each other to a party, but no matter what we did, right-clicking names or using the invite ID, neither of us saw an invite. Not in the game or on Steam. Then I backed out to the main menu and saw the end of a countdown timer, which was the invite my friend had just sent me. I clicked it just in time and finally got into the party. But why is the menu like this? Maybe it's just a bug and it'll be fixed later, but one of the most annoying things as a gamer is when the invite system doesn't work. All we want to do is send an invite and for our friend to click accept. That's it. And this isn't just this game, AAA studios mess this up too. Hopefully one day we'll figure this out. The game modes in Mini Royale are easy to understand. The main one is Royale mode. It's like any other battle royale game, but with one big twist. You can earn a respawn. If you play solo, you get one respawn. After using it, you can earn another by eliminating 3 other players. In duo and trio modes, you start with 2 or 3 team respawns respectively. If your team uses them up, you can earn more. Duos need 3 eliminations and trios need 4. Most battle royale games knock you out for good once you're eliminated, so this is a cool way to keep players in the game longer. In Color Conquest, when you eliminate an enemy, they join your team. The goal is to turn every player into part of your team. It's kind of like an infected mode in other games where players switch sides as they're eliminated. Deathmatch is what you would expect, just fast-paced shooting until time runs out or somebody reaches the score limit. There's also a ranked mode, custom games if you have the premium season pass, and tournaments, but only certain players can create those right now. Mini Royale has different daily and weekly challenges to keep things interesting. Like most free-to-play games, it also has a season pass. You can unlock stuff like weapon skins, parachutes, coins, emotes, and pendants. If you get the premium version of the pass, you can unlock even more rewards. But as far as other features or mechanics, there really isn't much depth to this game. One reason Battle Royale games are fun to play again and again is because your strategy always changes. Playing solo feels different from playing trios. Even in the same mode, you're always thinking about where to land, how to stay safe from the shrinking zone, and how to win. Mini Royale gives you that same experience, but adds something extra. There are leaderboards that give players more ways to compete. Some track things like daily Magnum kills or Car 98 headshots, others show who has the most daily wins, daily kills, or highest kill game. There are also global leaderboards for overall level, wins, and total kills. I've seen more and more games adding leaderboards like this, and I think it's great. Most people just play to have fun, but some want to be the best, and these leaderboards give them something to chase. When I played Mini Royale, there were over 5,000 players online, which was actually the highest number the game had ever seen. That felt like a good sign, but a few days later, the numbers dropped to just over 2,400 players. That's a pretty big drop. And adding to this, Call of Duty brought back Verdansk, which is going to make it really tough for Mini Royale to keep up. The numbers also seem to reflect that, showing the peak player count has been under 2,000 for the past couple of days. Even when there were more than 3,000 players, I noticed something odd. I saw a few Twitch streamers saying that they were running into the same players over and over again. That means the matchmaking system might need some work. With thousands of players online, you shouldn't be stuck playing the same people every time. Mini Royale has a really cool look. There are a few different maps that drop you into places like a kitchen, a sandbox, a classroom, and probably the best one, a playroom. From just one match, it's clear the playroom map got the most love from the devs. It's full of classic toys, and running around them gives you a big hit of nostalgia. It makes a great first impression. This game also has upgrade vending machines. You've probably seen something like this in other games, but I always like it. We've all had matches where we run around forever and still can't find a good weapon. These vending machines help with that. If you picked up enough dog tags, you can buy an upgrade and skip the bad luck loot. The gameplay itself is simple to pick up. That doesn't mean that the game is easy, but it's not hard to learn the basics. Honestly, it reminds me a little of Radical Heights. I know not everyone liked that game, but I did. It had a simple style, weird but fun movement, and a playful feel. Mini Royale feels the same way. It's easy to get started, but players who have practiced the movement mechanics will have a big advantage, so stay sharp. Now, while Mini Royale does have some really fun stuff, it's missing polish. That's not a huge surprise since it just came out in early access, but I do think it might have launched a little too soon. I get that studios sometimes need early access for funding, but when a game doesn't feel as smooth or as finished as others, it can scare off new players. Some of the problems I ran into happened pretty early in my playthrough. For example, third-person mode was basically empty. I waited forever to get into a match, and when it finally started, there was only one other person. On top of that, the character looked kind of weird in the third person. Movements didn't feel smooth or natural, so hopefully that gets better over time, but for now it's worth pointing out. Another big thing that bugged me is you can't look at the scoreboard after you're eliminated. Like in Deathmatch, if I wanted to check how I'm doing, I have to wait until I respawn. Most of the time I don't care about checking the stats during a fight because I'm too busy trying to survive. But if I'm out, let me look. It's wild that you can't. Speaking of deathmatch, there's a huge problem with the spawn points. Players basically spawn on top of each other. You can camp one spot and keep taking people out as they show up. It's not fun for the people being eliminated, and honestly, it's not fun for the people doing the eliminating either. Plus, someone can spawn right behind you the second you spawn in, which makes things way too chaotic. But here's my biggest issue with deathmatch. Players who are waiting for a different game mode get dropped into an active deathmatch game. If queues are slow, I get wanting to give people something to do, but if I only want to play deathmatch, I shouldn't be in a match with people who are just passing through. It messes with the flow. You can't learn your enemy's style, people are leaving and joining all the time. Again, it's just chaos and not the fun kind. Finally, we have to talk about microtransactions. Some of them feel kind of crazy. A cape or a full skin costs about $10 since you need to buy 2,000 coins for $9.99. That's assuming you don't already have coins from the battle pass. And don't even get me started on the coloring buckets. They're consumable, which means once you use one to change your character's color, it's gone. At least I think that's what they do. I can't say that with confidence since there isn't a description of what they do on the item itself. If that's the case and you want to change it again, pay again. 3 of those buckets will cost you another $10. That just doesn't feel worth it to me. At first, Mini Royale had me excited. The nostalgia hit hard and I thought this game was going to be a lot of fun. But after spending more time with it, I realized I just wasn't that into it.
I'm just not that into you.
It's not that the game is boring, like it has some cool ideas, but with so many other games out there that feel smoother, faster, and more complete, it's hard to want to stick with this one. When I play a game, I want to be pulled into the action. I want to be excited to come back. Mini Royale didn't do that for me. And when a game doesn't keep your interest, it's tough to justify spending more time or money on it. The way Mini Royale is right now, I don't think that I'll be returning to it. It doesn't mean that I would never come back to it, but fixing the issues I mentioned earlier would be a great start. And if the player base survives while they continue in early access, that will obviously play a much larger role. But in time, I do see promise here. It's just a matter of how they decide to execute. I really wanted to like this game, but after playing it for a while, I just didn't. I still think Mini Royale could be something special, but right now all of the things that I mentioned are really holding it back. It definitely needs more time in the oven. That's why I'm giving Mini Royale a 2 out of 10, which puts it in F tier. If you're thinking about trying Mini Royale, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or you agree with the F tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Mini Royale, let me know down in the comments. What if I told you one of the most fun games I've played recently was about running a supermarket? Sounds boring, right? That's what I thought too. But while digging through piles of free games on Steam, I found one called Supermarket Together. I expected it to be terrible, but I was very wrong. So wrong that by the end of my review, I gave the developers my hard-earned money. Let's take a look. To play Supermarket Together, you start by opening your own store. Just pick a name and choose if you want the game to be private, friends only, or public, and pick your difficulty. Heads up though, the difficulties are no joke. You'll see why soon enough. Also, once you choose the difficulty, you can't change it unless you go back to the main menu and reload your game, so plan accordingly. If you already have a store, loading it is even easier, but remember, your store only saves after you close for the day. Joining friends in Supermarket Together is pretty simple, but the Steam interface doesn't seem to work. Instead, you'll need a join code. Just hit the escape key and click the button that says copy join code to clipboard. Paste that into Discord or Steam chat and your friends can jump right in. Worried about people messing up your store? There's a setting called remove all permissions when joining. Turn that on and nobody can do anything until you give them permission. You can choose who can chat, cashier, stock shelves, act as security, or even run the store as a manager. You can also give someone full control if you really trust them. Permissions are super helpful when playing with random people or friends who just like to cause chaos. And if someone really starts causing trouble, you can throw them in the jail cell in the staff room. Yeah, there's a jail cell in the staff room. Who thought that was a good idea? Otherwise, if things get worse, you can kick them out of the game entirely. When you start Supermarket Together, the game gives you a mini tutorial. It's quick, but it does the job. It shows you how to place shelves and to register, order stock and items, set prices, and open your store. After that, you're on your own. Oh, and it also teaches you how to beat up thieves. Yeah, that's a thing. Remember when I said the difficulty multiplier was no joke? I learned that the hard way. I set the difficulty to 5 thinking it would be medium. You know, right in the middle of 1 and 10. Nope. I had a huge line of angry customers, and the ones who didn't want to wait just started stealing. I had to stop working the register to chase down thieves, and they just kept coming. It was wild. Funny, sure, but I had to restart the game on difficulty 1 just to survive. The game has most of what you would expect in a supermarket sim. There's no real story, but you can do all the tasks that you would expect. Stocking shelves, setting prices, running the register, and managing the store. There's even a franchise tree, kind of like a skill tree in other games. You can unlock new types of food, hire workers, and get special bonuses. You can also buy more storage or space to grow your store. The cool part? You don't have to follow a set path. You get to choose how your store grows. Supermarket Together offers a bunch of replayability in that you can choose different paths to follow as you grow your franchise. Plus, you can start more than one store if you want to. Choose from different difficulties and play with up to 16 people. So maybe one day you and a friend want to take on a store together, but then on the weekend, maybe 5 or 6 of you are together. Any combination of these things can significantly affect your gameplay. It's really up to you how easy or hard you want the experience to be. On top of that, you can build different layouts to see which supermarket is most efficient, or you can just keep grinding to build the ultimate supermarket. When I checked how many people were playing, I was shocked, in a good way. Supermarket Together had more players than the last 2 games I reviewed combined. Over 4,000 people were playing at once, and the 24-hour peak was over 7,000. Even better, the numbers have stayed pretty steady. Back in November of 2024, just 3 months after the launch, the player count was still strong and it hasn't dropped much since. One of the coolest things about Supermarket Together is how the game keeps you on your toes. Even though it gives you tips early on, there can be some little and sudden surprises that make things exciting and fun. The ability to play this game with friends is something cool that not all sim games allow for. Maybe you've played games like Car Mechanic Simulator or Gas Station Simulator and thought, this would be a lot more fun with friends. Well, Supermarket Together offers that, which can make it way more fun. Something that really shocked me, there are no microtransactions. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find a single way to spend money in-game. For a free-to-play game, that's super rare, especially one this good. I don't know much about the developer since this is their only game on Steam, but wow, they nailed it. Lastly, this game has a lot of charm. It doesn't seem to take itself too seriously in some respects, and then in others you're trying to manage and run a successful grocery store. Hitting thieves with brooms and stocking shelves doesn't sound like it should be fun on paper, but in practice, something about it just works. And honestly, there's not much to complain about. The 2 things I noticed might even be part of the game on purpose, or maybe they get better as you get further along. First, I kind of wish there was more variety in what you can do. Not like when I played on difficulty 5 and had to chase down shoplifters nonstop, but smaller things like cleaning up trash, mopping floors, or fixing stuff around the store. It might make the game feel more real, but I get that too much might also make it less fun. Second, I wish I could use the number pad on my keyboard to type in credit card payments. You can use it when setting prices with the pricing gun, so it feels a little weird that it doesn't work at the register. Maybe it's meant to make the cashier job feel more realistic and slow-paced, or maybe it's that way just because. These might actually be addressed later in the skill tree or as the game progresses, but I'm just not sure. So if you played Supermarket Together and you know the answer, let me know down in the comments. Remember at the beginning when I said I thought this game was going to be terrible? Well, it wasn't. When my review time was up, I didn't want to stop playing. I actually had to force myself to step away and go to bed, but even then I couldn't stop thinking about the game. I turned on the TV to relax, but all I wanted to do was go back and keep playing. And the next morning, same thing. I had stuff to do, but my brain was still stuck in supermarket mode. Even now as I'm writing the script, I want to go play it. So yeah, the game was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Earlier I said that I looked all over and I couldn't find a way to spend money. That was mostly true. While the game itself doesn't have any microtransactions, the developers did release a DLC that, in their own words, features mostly cosmetics and costs about $5. In the past, there have been small studios who release games that I really enjoyed. Unfortunately, those studios didn't survive, and that means the games that they created didn't either. After that happened a couple of times, I made the choice to start supporting smaller developers in hopes that they will continue to make cool things. With Supermarket Together, I can't get over how cool this free game is, and the fact that it doesn't have microtransactions being pushed on players is amazing. So for that, they get my $5. And needless to say, I will definitely be returning to Supermarket Together. This game checks all the boxes in terms of having a good time and providing an overall great experience. And that's why Supermarket Together scores a 10 out of 10, putting it in S tier. If you're thinking about trying Supermarket Together, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the S tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Supermarket Together, let me know in the comments. I wanted to review just one game, but somehow I ended up playing 12. Well, 5 were demos, and they were all kind of the same game, but also not. Confused? Yeah, me too. Stick around, because this review spun out of control, and it all started with a game called Engine Evolution. Before you can race, you have to enter your birthday, your gender, and agree to a privacy policy. Why? No idea. I 100% recommend that you just make something up, because why does a video game by a solo developer require this information? If it explains it in the privacy policy, guess what? No one reads that. Once that's done, you'll pick some graphic settings, choose a name, color, race number, and country. Then you set how hard you want the game to be, like turning on auto braking or racing lines, and boom, you're ready to go. It sounds like a lot, but it really only takes a few minutes. After that, you'll see a few ways to race. Pick a vehicle, hit race, and the game puts you into an online match with others who pick the same kind of ride. Or you can race against AI, practice laps alone, or make a custom lobby to race with your friends. Joining a friend is a little odd in this game. There's no party system like in other games. You can make a custom race for friends, but that's about it. If your buddy jumps into a random race, there's no button to just join them. So you can both pick quick race in hopes that you land in the same lobby, but it's not guaranteed. Then again, with the number of people playing, you might actually pull it off. But more on that later. The game's goal is simple: race. There are no big tournaments or fancy storylines. Each race starts right after the last one, and they usually last about 2 or 3 laps. That's it. Just race and try to win. The controls are super easy to learn. I usually play games with a mouse and keyboard when I'm reviewing, but for racing games, I like using a controller. My Xbox One controller worked great while racing. Just a heads up though, you will need a mouse and keyboard for the menus. If you prefer using a keyboard for racing, that works fine too. Engine Evolution gives you daily missions. You can complete them by racing, earning XP, and placing in the top 5. You can customize your vehicle, your rider, and your profile to make things feel a little bit more personal. There's also a tech tree where you can unlock new vehicles as you level up. That part's pretty fun, but beyond that, there's not a ton of stuff to do. There are no big championships to win, no trophies, and no story to follow. If you're not into chasing achievements or unlocking new rides, it might feel a little repetitive after a while. The fun you get from this game really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want to hop in, race a few laps, and have a good time, then it'll probably be fun for you. But since there's not much to do beyond that, most people probably won't keep coming back. With so many other free or cheap racing games that offer more and have bigger player communities, Engine Evolution just isn't going to be a popular option. Since I've talked about the player base a couple of times now, it's probably time to explain why I ended up reviewing 12 different games even though I've mostly talked about one, and why the number of players keeps coming up. My original plan was to review Engine Evolution 2023 since it had been on my wishlist for a while. But once I started playing, I realized there wasn't going to be enough content for a full video. So I checked out the developers page on Steam and saw a bunch of other Engine Evolution games and demos. I thought, cool, I'll just install these and review the whole series. That's when things started to get weird. Each time I launched a new game, it felt like I was just opening the same game again. There were small differences, like Formula Evolution had its own title screen and tech tree just for Formula-style vehicles, but everything else was the same. Even when I clicked on Race, I was in a lobby with the same people I had seen in Engine Evolution 2023. The same thing happened when I tried Engine Evolution 2021 and 2022. Some of the demos, Motocross Evolution 2025, Kart Evolution 2025, and Hypercar Evolution 2025, had slightly different tech trees and titles, but everything else worked exactly the same. So I did more digging and I found something interesting on the developer's website. In the FAQ, there's a question about why there are so many versions of the game. The answer says, quote, "All versions share the same database and anything you unlock, purchase in EE 2021 will be shared into EE 2022. Releasing a new version of the game helps me explain new features to the player base and properly advertise them." So that explains why everything feels connected, because it is. But I've got some thoughts on that, which I'll get to in a minute. First, let's finally talk about the player numbers. Because each version is a separate download on Steam, the Steam API tracks them like they're different games. That means that the player count changes depending on which version you're looking at. But after launching any version of the game, you can click Other and see how many people are online and where they're from. And no matter where you check, the numbers aren't great. In the US, I only saw 2 players online. With the EU included, that number went up to 58. But those players are spread out across all different versions of the game and the demos, which may or may not allow you to access the same lobbies. So whichever game you pick, there are likely fewer than you're expecting. Even though all of that is a bit confusing, Engine Evolution still has some fun things going for it. The vehicles, no matter which version you play, look really good. I've never played a game where I drove old cars and motorcycles like these before, and even though they might look slow, the racing didn't feel that way. While the tracks are relatively flat, the environment all around looks very nice. The graphics aren't mind-blowing, but they're still better than a lot of other indie racing games out there. Now, in online racing games, there's always someone who will crash into you, either because they're new and not very good, or because they have the mentality of, if I can't win, neither can you. This game is no exception, but the cool part? If someone crashes into you, they usually crash too. I think that's on purpose so people don't try to ruin races. Of course, some still hit you, but it seems like it does help to stop that behavior. Another smart feature is what happens when you lap someone. They turn into a ghost, which means they can't crash into you. That's great because getting knocked out of first place by someone in last place is the worst. There are, however, some problems with this game that can't really be ignored. Let's start with a couple of the small ones before we get into the big stuff. First, the vehicle physics feel off. It's not realistic, but it's not arcade style either. It's just strange. For example, tapping a wall slightly makes your wheels pop off, forcing a reset. Or if you hit a curb while turning, your car might launch into the air. Braking is inconsistent too. Sometimes letting off the gas is enough, and other times the brakes feel useless. There's no way to report or block people in the game. Instead, and I'm not going to read this word for word, but the developer wants you to submit a screenshot and video with the person's name and what they are doing, and an admin will take a look at it. He goes on to say that the admins are busy with school and jobs. Well, guess what? So are the people playing your game. And if the choice is to take time out of their day to submit a report to someone who may or may not deal with the situation, they're likely just going to go play a different game. I know I would. And there's no way to chat with other players. The controls claim F5 through F8 let you say things like sorry or good race, but they never worked for me. This means that you can't easily tell other racers you didn't mean to bump them or give a quick GG at the end. Now on to the biggest issue. The whole series of games being released as separate downloads on Steam. I completely disagree with the developer's reason for doing this. I've got nearly 27 gigabytes of what is basically the same 2.24 gigabyte game on my computer. The store pages don't clearly explain what each version is or why you should pick one over the others. And since everything runs on the same database, even the demos, there's no reason this couldn't be one game. Steam supports updates, betas, test versions. Those tools exist for a reason. And the real reason this was done? The developer says it plainly. Quote, "The problem was that the game was dead and there was no way out of that situation. I figured out the only solution was to release a new Steam page with players keeping all their stuff. That way I will get exposure again." That's not about explaining new features. That's about tricking people. I get that this is an indie student game, but if that's the case, why try to game the system? If any other developer did this, it would still feel dishonest and I would still have a problem with it. This is not only bad design, but it feels like a sneaky way to get people to play your game, which is ultimately going to kill trust with your player base. I probably said enough on that topic, so let's shift gears and end on a positive note. Despite the complaints and frustrations I've mentioned, I genuinely had fun playing this game. In races where everyone was driving clean and focused on competing, it was actually a great experience. Trading positions, dodging wrecks, and fighting for first place felt rewarding. If you've played the Super Woden GP games, you know it's not just about racing. It's about learning the physics and mastering the handling. That's what makes Engine Evolution enjoyable too. The unusual vehicles and the challenge of adapting to their quirks keeps things interesting. Would I come back and play it all the time? No, probably not. But I wouldn't rule it out completely either. It could be a fun game to mess around with friends either online or at a LAN party. Racing against AI or jumping into a random lobby still has its moments. But in the end, there are other racing games out there, both free and paid, that offer a better all-around experience. And those are the ones I'm more likely to spend my time with. While there's some fun to be had in Engine Evolution, it doesn't really stand out in the world of racing games. With so many versions that all feel exactly the same, it's tough to recommend any of them, unless you're just looking for something different and have already played everything else. That's why the Engine Evolution games get a 4 out of 10, placing them in C tier. If you're thinking about trying any of the Engine Evolution games, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the C tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play the Engine Evolution games, let me know down in the comments. Have you ever played a game that felt more like a dream than a video game? That game company, the team behind the award-winning game Journey, is back with something new. Almost 12 years later, they've made a magical MMO called Sky Children of the Light. It plays like a platformer, but it still has the same beautiful style and amazing music that they're known for. Getting started in Sky is pretty simple. You begin with a short cutscene that you can play through, followed by a quick tutorial that teaches you how to move and interact with the world around you. You meet some characters, learn about the world, and get a feel for the story. After that, the game opens up and lets you explore on your own. Playing with a friend is where it gets a little tricky. To be honest, I had to Google how to do it. You use a friend code to add someone, which isn't too hard, but finding them in the game is the confusing part. Turns out, you have to go to a special place called the Constellation Table to warp to them. It's not super hard, but needing to look it up might make it frustrating for new players. In the tutorial, you learn that the main goal is to help lost souls and light up their darkened kingdom using your flame. As you keep playing, this goal becomes even clearer. You collect these souls and bring them to the temple at the end of each area. There, you restore the altar's light to awaken the temple's elder. When you do this, the souls that you helped allow you to unlock rewards like new emotes, spells, which are basically powers, and cosmetics. When it comes to the story, I'll be honest, I have no idea what's going on. It's not very easy to follow. There's a cutscene that shows people building a kingdom in the clouds, but then it says they took their light for granted, and somehow that ended their whole world. Now it's up to you, the player, to fix everything. As you explore, you'll see drawings on cave walls and watch souls relive past moments as you save them. These seem like they're supposed to explain more about what happened, but for me they didn't really help the story make sense. The game works differently from a lot of other MMOs. You'll come across spirit gates that block your path, and to open them you need to save enough souls first. You can also fly, and the more you play, the stronger your flying powers get. In each area, you collect light. When you collect enough, it fills up the candle meter in the top left corner. Remember earlier when I said the souls that you save let you unlock stuff? Well, candles are how you pay for those items. Candles are basically the game's money. You can use them for other things too, but I'll get into that later. Right now, I want to talk about something that really surprised me in this MMO. How you talk to people. Talking in Sky is weird. There's no world chat or local chat. Instead, you make little noises, like honks and beeps. There are special places called shared spaces where players can build little exhibits and leave notes for others to see, and if you're playing with a friend, you can use the in-game chat, but only with them. I think the game is trying to get players to connect in a different way, without using words. Or maybe it's just trying to avoid the usual mess of public chat in online games. Either way, it's a unique idea. Whether you think it's cool or kind of strange, it definitely stands out. One thing I noticed pretty fast is that the gameplay feels repetitive. You save some souls, restore the altar's light to wake up the elder, and then do it all over again. There are some small tasks along the way, like using your light to clean up weird, dark plants, and when you do that, the plants turn into butterflies. You can then collect those butterflies to get dyes, which you can later use to change your outfits. But even that started to feel like the same thing again and again. Since I don't fully understand the story and the tasks all felt so similar, it started to seem like there wasn't much else going on in the game. Like a lot of games these days, Sky has seasons, and each season brings a new quest line. The current season's quest feels a little different from the main story, but I'm not sure if that's always the case. Seasonal quests also come with special outfits and items, but you need to have the season pass to unlock some of them. Still, Sky seems to be a pretty popular game. When I played, there were almost 4,500 people online, and the 24-hour peak was just over 5,800. Even more impressive, the game's player base has stayed pretty steady since launch. The biggest day had 8,800 players, and that was over a year ago. A lot of games lose players fast after launch, but this one held on to over 5,000 players consistently over the last year. That's a really good sign that people are still interested in playing. And honestly, it's easy to see why people like this game. Sky is beautiful. That game company's art style looks amazing, and the music is just as good. The world feels fresh, unique, and unlike anything I've ever seen in an MMO. As I kept playing, I was always curious about what was coming next. Most MMOs let you walk or fly around, but Sky mixes those ideas in a way that feels special. Even though it's an online game, it still plays like a platformer in some ways, which makes it stand out. A couple of cool features in Sky are the ability to leave notes or creating shared spaces. These are spots where players can leave notes for each other. I'm not sure how the game checks or controls what people write, but most of the messages I saw were really positive. Some were written in other languages, and a few didn't make a lot of sense, but it was still fun to read them. The idea that players take time to leave these messages for others is really neat. I haven't seen that in many games before. Have you? Let me know down in the comments. Lastly, I want to talk a bit more about how you move around. Earlier I said that you can walk or fly like in other games, but in Sky it feels way smoother. You can slide down hills, walk, and take off flying almost like it's one single motion. And as you level up, your flying gets better too. You can fly further and stay in the air longer as you progress through the game. For everything I liked about Sky, there were just as many things that I didn't. One of the biggest issues for me was the story. I know the game is meant to be simple and there isn't much talking or text to explain what's going on, so maybe you're supposed to figure things out later on. But I never really felt like I knew what was happening, and that made it hard to stay connected to the game. What's strange is that the seasonal questline did have more text and made more sense. Even though I might have missed some backstory, I understood what was going on there. It made me wonder why the main story couldn't be told in a similar way. Earlier I said I like the shared spaces where players can leave notes, and I do, but they can also get in the way. Players can place these spaces almost anywhere, even right on top of each other. If that happens, it might block somebody else's space or make it hard to do something important nearby. Like if you're trying to catch butterflies or light a torch, you might accidentally open a shared space instead. It gets annoying quickly. Something else I didn't love was the way that the game handles friend interactions. If you want to do something like use a high five emote with a friend, you have to spend a candle. A level 2 high five costs 4 candles. A hug costs 2 candles. Sending a gift? That's 3 candles. I'm sorry, but using in-game money just to high five someone is kinda crazy, especially when candles can be bought with real money. Maybe it gets easier to earn candles later on, but I still don't think simple emotes with friends should cost anything. And finally, even though I've already mentioned it, the gameplay just feels too repetitive. Sure, collecting souls and lighting altars in each zone changes a little each time, but it still feels like the same thing over and over. By the end, I was honestly just waiting for my review time to be up. I wanted to like it more, but there just wasn't enough to keep me hooked. And that brings me to the fun factor. At first, Sky looks and sounds amazing. The world is beautiful, the music is calming, and the way that you play it feels really different from other games. But after a while, that excitement starts to fade. Some players might enjoy how calm and consistent the gameplay is. For me, it was just too repetitive. I kept hoping that as I moved into new areas, something cool or surprising would happen, but even though the zones got bigger, the way you played stayed exactly the same. That's why I don't think I would return to this game. The seasonal questline did seem a little more interesting, but each season lasts around 9 to 11 weeks. So if you like to move through content quickly, you might get bored waiting for something new. Plus, I have a feeling that seasonal quests would feel better if you already finished the main story, and that part kind of felt like a chore to me. All in all, this game has a really unique look that will catch the eye of anyone looking to check it out on its various available platforms. And even though the gameplay is different from your typical MMO, that doesn't always mean it's exciting. After a few hours with the main story, I felt like things didn't change much. Some players might enjoy the simple and calming style, but others might wish that there was more variety. That's why Sky Children of the Light gets a 5 out of 10, placing it in B tier. If you're thinking about trying Sky Children of the Light, I've added links to the store pages in the description. If you like this video or agree with the B tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Sky Children of the Light, let me know down in the comments. Have you ever played a survival game with tons of story, tons of weapons, and way too many wild dogs? Imagine if Minecraft and the Stalker series had a baby, and then gave it a gritty texture pack. That's what you get with StalCraft X. Let's take a look at the good stuff, the not so good stuff, and everything in between. Since StalCraft is an MMO, the first thing you do is make your character. Then you head into the tutorial. And honestly, the tutorial isn't very short. It took me over 10 minutes to get through it, plus a few more minutes of story before I could choose my faction. You get to pick between being a stalker and a bandit, and then you finally drop into the game. But right after that, there's another long chat with an NPC. Sure, the intro helps explain the story, but it feels like it could have been done much faster. After all that, you can finally team up with a friend. Adding my friend was simple. I sent the request, they accepted, done. Adding them to your squad is easy too, but there's something that you should keep in mind. First time I sent the invite, my friend was in the menu and didn't see it. After trying it again, they saw the prompt to hit Y, and this time it worked. If you happen to miss the invite, you can go into the notifications button in the menu and see the invite there. StalCraft gives you your first quest through your PDA. You can use it to make quests active and choose if you want to show them on your map. You'll get a bunch of quests right away, from talking to NPCs to finding items or taking out enemies. There are also special places on the map with NPC missions like bandit camps, help allies, or mutt dens. Helping allies, from what I saw, was helping them to fight off hordes of mutant dogs, which is also a lot like the mutt dens, but in that case you're on your own. Bandit camps have a handful of enemies that you need to eliminate, and in each of these scenarios, once you complete the mission, you receive a reward. When I first started StalCraft, I didn't think there would be much of a story, but I was totally wrong. Besides the introduction to the world, the NPCs have a lot to say. Almost every NPC in the safe zones gives you a quest or helps you move a quest forward, and that doesn't stop once you leave the safe zone. Out in the wild, there are tons of quests to find, and completing them will earn you rewards like rubles or gear. From what I've seen so far, there are a lot of weapons and a lot of items to collect. The gameplay feels kind of arcade-like. That's not a bad thing though. Sometimes it's fun to play a game that doesn't try to be super realistic. Lets you chill out and enjoy yourself. But be careful. If you run into a group of wild animals, things can get intense fast. I've had a few run-ins with them, and let's just say, not all of them ended well. You'll also come across anomalies. strange energy spots that can randomly remove you from existence, so make sure to watch your surroundings when you're exploring the wasteland. In my first few hours, I didn't run into any PvP fights. I think it's because I really wasn't in the right place or my level wasn't high enough yet. That makes sense though, since most RPGs and MMOs give you time to learn before throwing you into the mix with real players. I'm assuming that if I continue to level up, PvP would become a bigger focus. So if you're hoping for instant PvP action, you might be a little let down, but if you like a slower start that gives you time to explore and learn, you'll probably enjoy it. Either way, StarCraft has a lot to offer. I know I'm only scratching the surface of this story. I could tell just by how many quests I got in the starting area, and even more popped up when I made it into the firehouse. And I still hadn't finished the first batch I was given. On top of that, the season pass in this game is like nothing I've ever seen. It has over 500 levels. Most games I've played only have around 100. So the fact that you can unlock that many items and play through that much story means that StarCraft gives you a ton of gameplay, especially for a free game. And the number of players proves it. No matter what time you log in, there are tons of people playing. When I logged on, there were nearly 7,000 players online, and the 24-hour peak was over 15,000. And something that I haven't really seen with other games before, at least not this dramatic, is the daily swing in players. If you're in the US, the most active time is in the morning. You might see anywhere from 14,000 to 16,000 players online. In the evening, that drops to around 3,000 or 4,000, but that's still a solid number. And over the past week, those numbers have stayed pretty steady. Looking at the bigger picture, each season in StarCraft lasts 90 days, and the player count seems to rise and fall as people finish the content. But overall, the game seems to be gaining more players than it's losing, which is a great sign if you're thinking about sticking with it long term. I've already mentioned the story a few times, but I'm bringing it up again because I really enjoyed it. It pulled me in enough that I wanted to keep exploring and see what else the world had to offer. I like talking to different NPCs, running quests, and just seeing what was out there. And speaking of exploring, the world has this creepy, eerie feeling to it. Even in the daytime, everything looks kind of dark and dingy. It makes you feel like danger could pop up at any second. And honestly, a lot of times it does. Sometimes I'd just be walking along and out of nowhere mutant animals would attack. They can be tough if you're not ready. I died a few times before I figured out that if I just paid more attention to my surroundings, I could avoid or outrun some of them. Though I'll admit, I think I got lucky a few times too. You also have to watch out for anomalies in StarCraft. These are weird energy spots that can mess you up fast if you're not paying attention. So yeah, watch your step out there. Now let's talk about gunplay. It's awesome. I didn't try every weapon, but the ones that I used were super fun to shoot. The guns feel more arcade-like, which I actually enjoyed. It makes the game easier to jump into, especially in a world that can be pretty tough. Instead of stressing about gun recoil or the perfect loadout, you can focus more on the story, the gameplay, and the action around you. It helps keep the game fun instead of feeling like a grind, especially for new players. Another thing I liked, the game is really easy to navigate. Your PDA comes with a map, which is always helpful, but there are also markers in the world that guide you to quests and NPCs. This means that you're never stuck wondering what to do next. Whether it's picking up a quest, clearing a bandit camp, or helping your allies, there's always something to do. And that's something a lot of MMOs and RPGs don't always get right. Earlier I said I didn't find PvP right away in StarCraft, for better or for worse. Honestly, it's an RPG. I'm not usually looking for PvP at the start. I just want to learn the game, enjoy the story, and figure things out first. But not everyone plays that way, so if you want PvP from the very beginning, this might not be the game for you. But if you're more into exploring and getting into PvP later, I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, let's talk about the item shop. If StarCraft X is your main game and you want to support the devs, I don't think there's anything wrong with spending money. But I'll be honest, some of the prices feel a bit too high. Like a single weapon skin can cost anywhere from $22 to $30. Yes, some skins come in bundles that are a better deal, but it's still kind of expensive. It's frustrating to see digital stuff keep going up in price. These aren't real items and they don't benefit your gameplay, but in the end it's your choice. You decide if it's worth it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you pay these prices for cosmetics in this game? Overall, there wasn't much to dislike about this game. I actually had a ton of fun playing it. The story felt a little slow at first, but once I started talking to NPCs, I wanted to learn more about the world. Each quest didn't feel like just another boring fetch quest. Instead, they felt like they mattered to the story, and they made me want to keep playing. I found myself excited to meet new NPCs and uncover the mysteries around me. Considering that StarCraft is a free-to-play survival game and offers so much to do, I can definitely see myself coming back to it. There's still a ton of story I haven't uncovered and lots of gear and weapons I haven't even tried yet. If you decide to check out StallCraft, you'll have hours of fun and you won't need to spend a single dime. And that's ultimately why StallCraft X gets a 9 out of 10, placing it in S tier. If you're thinking about trying StallCraft X, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the A tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play StallCraft X, let me know down in the comments. While scrolling through Steam's huge list of free games, one title caught my interest. It looked familiar, but I couldn't remember why. Then it hit me. I played this on my phone way back in 2019, but now it's on Steam? That got me thinking. Can a mobile game really stand out on Steam when it's next to so many full-blown PC games? Let's find out by taking a look at Shop Titans. Before I talk about how easy it is to get into this game, I have to be honest with you. I usually review games that I've never played before so I can give them all a fair shot. In this case though, I played Shop Titans 5 years ago. I even re-downloaded the mobile app just to check, and believe it or not, I played it longer during this review than I did back then. I didn't even remember the gameplay from the first time, so this review is still fresh and fair, but I just wanted to be clear since that's always my goal with these videos. Now, when you start Shop Titans, the tutorial does two things. It shows you the story and it teaches you how to run your shop. It feels a lot like other mobile game tutorials. It tells you how to do something, gives you a little time to try it out, then jumps back in to explain the next step. According to the App Store, the game is for ages 9 and up, and that makes sense. The long, simple explanations feel like they're made for younger players. Not only for them, but they're clearly part of the audience. I'd say your first 20 minutes or so are spent learning how the shop works while slowly getting into the story. Playing Shop Titans with friends doesn't feel like a regular PC game. It feels more like a mobile game. Right before you hit level 4, the game opens up guilds and in-game chat. When you join a guild, you can help others and ask for items too. But if you want to play with your actual friends and not just random people, you'll need to get into the same guild. That can be tricky if there aren't enough spots left. You can make your own guild, but there is a catch. Starting a guild costs 500 gems. That's about $5 in real money. You can earn gems by playing, but it takes a long time. Probably hours just to get enough to play with your friends. So unless you want to grind a lot, playing with friends might cost you. Thanks to the tutorial and clicking around the crafting screen, the main goal is clear. Make better gear and sell it. The game also gives you quests which teach you what to do next. They show you that you should keep upgrading your shop, your workers, and just about everything else as you go. Some quests also just give you rewards. As your shop gets better, you earn champion coins to level up your champions, and that's what keeps the story moving forward. This game starts to feel a bit like wash, rinse, repeat, because that's exactly what it is. While playing Shop Titans, the main loop never really changes. You craft items, you sell them, then you do it all over again. The only real thing that you do is manage your heroes and send them on quests. The story doesn't add much either. Every time your champions level up, you get a tiny bit of story. But honestly, it's not that interesting. For example, one character named Argon wants to become one of the king's knights, so when you help him level up, his story moves forward. But there's barely any detail and it doesn't feel connected to what you're doing in your shop. Instead of a big exciting story, it feels more like a small side plot that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, Shop Titans is kind of like a fancy clicker game. You click, wait, click again, and there's no big goal or exciting story to pull you along. That said, Shop Titans has a lot of replay value. The game runs in seasons, and like most live service games, there's a season pass that gives you extra challenges. This setup is really common in online games today. Whether or not that content is actually fun is another story, and we'll get to that soon. But first, let's take a look at how many people are playing Shop Titans. When I logged on, there were over 4,500 people playing Shop Titans on Steam. The 24-hour peak was just over 4,600. That's actually a pretty good number considering that's only Steam players. The game is also available on iOS, Android, and the Epic Game Store, so the total number of players could be much higher. One website, playtracker.net, says that there are more than 33,000 active players in total, but when I looked into how they came up with that number, it wasn't very clear, so take that with a grain of salt. Looking back at the Steam stats, player numbers have slowly gone down over the past year. Just a little bit, but overall, the player base still looks strong. Even with the slight drop, there's nothing major to worry about for now. If you've seen some of my past reviews, you know I'm not a big fan of games that make you create an account just to play. Luckily, Shop Titans doesn't force that. Instead, linking an account is just a feature. Something you can do, not something you have to do. And honestly, that makes sense. I don't think most people are discovering this game on Steam and sitting down for long PC sessions. More likely, they started playing on mobile and just want the option to jump on their PC when it's convenient. The Steam player count shows that there is a solid group playing there, but it's still much smaller than the 33,000 that we saw from Play Tracker. If that number's accurate, it backs up the idea that most players probably are on mobile. Either way, it's nice that you can play on different devices and pick up where you left off. Now here's something surprising. Shop Titans looks pretty good even though it has very low system requirements. Seriously, you could probably run this on a potato. The art style is simple and clean, and the game is easy on the eyes. The menus are also laid out really well so you don't get lost clicking around. Since this game started on mobile, I was a little worried that the PC version would feel like a bad port of an old mobile game, but that wasn't the case. I was surprised to see that you can earn power back by giving discounts, chatting with customers, or selling items, which keeps you playing. You can also get power back by adding a pet or decorating your shop. When a customer interacts with decorations or your pet, you'll earn power points back. In the early parts of the game, you can play for a long time without needing to stop, as long as you're careful about how often you use surcharges to earn more gold. For some context, surcharges use a lot of power, but you get a lot more gold in return. Given the mobile nature of the game, I would expect that at some point power is going to be harder to acquire and surcharging your items will have a bigger impact. Aside from those features, there really isn't much else in Shop Titans that stood out as cool or exciting. And there are a few reasons why it doesn't feel that exciting. First, the story is weak and honestly kind of pointless. Remember Argon, the guy who wants to be one of the king's knights? Well, after my time playing, the only real thing I learned was he wants to be a knight. Later, there's a short scene where someone teases him about having a crush on the king's assistant, but that's it. It didn't pull me in at all, and it definitely didn't make me want to keep playing for the story. Now, let's talk about the gem problem again. I really don't like when games make you pay for basic features like playing with your friends. Yes, you can earn 500 gems by grinding, but you'll also need gems for other important things. For example, if you want to open chests and you don't have keys, you'll need to spend gems. So in the end, it starts to feel like you have to spend real money. What makes it worse is that the game wants you to use guilds to get help from other players. But if you want to play with your actual friends, you either need to find the same guild with open spots or pay gems to create your own. That just doesn't feel fair. Playing with friends should be simple and built into any game claiming to be multiplayer. But it's not just the gems. The microtransactions in this game are way over the top. It feels like every time you log in, there's a new offer trying to get you to spend money. The store icon is always showing, and you're constantly reminded to check out new packs. At one point, even the king showed up at my shop asking me to buy stuff. I get that free games need to make money, but this kind of pressure is one of the reasons I stopped playing mobile games, and seeing this on Steam just feels wrong. Another big problem is how many different types of currencies the game uses. It's way too much. You got gold, gems, spin tickets, champion coins, guild coins, renown, fortune tokens, and maybe even more I didn't notice. It's confusing. The game would be a lot easier to manage if it just used one regular currency, one for leveling, and maybe one paid currency. But with so many, it just feels messy and hard to keep track of. Now you might be thinking, this game has a lot of problems. Why are you still talking about it? And honestly, it's because Shop Titans is kind of fun. I've said before, I don't really play mobile games anymore. I got tired of all the ads, pop-ups, and being asked to spend money every 5 minutes. I ended up deleting those games. These days, the only kind of mobile games I play is something like Stardew Valley, a full game I paid for with no annoying extras. But even though Shop Titans is clearly a mobile game at heart, I still enjoyed my time with it. It's sort of a mix between an idle game and a clicker. You don't really earn anything while you're away except for items crafting in the background, and when you're playing, you mostly just click to make stuff. But there's something relaxing about it. It's the kind of game you can play while drinking a cup of coffee, then walk away and come back later. It's not super exciting, but it's kinda cozy. But all that said, I don't think there's enough here to make me come back. I totally get why some people would enjoy this game, especially mobile gamers, and the ability to play across different devices is a nice feature, but when you compare Shop Titans to all the other free games available on PC, it's tough to recommend. That's ultimately why Shop Titans gets a 4 out of 10, placing it in C tier. If you're thinking about trying Shop Titans, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the C tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play Shop Titans, let me know down in the comments. Big suits of armor controlled by humans? Not really my thing. Shows like Gundam never grabbed me, and mech games I've played in the past never felt fun. I liked Power Rangers a little bit when I was a kid, but that was about it. So when I saw a mech game pop up on Steam, I wasn't excited and I almost skipped it. But instead, I pushed myself to give it a try, and I'm glad I did. It turned out to be one of the best free-to-play games I've played all year. Want to know why? Let's dive into Mecha Break. If you hate long tutorials, here's some good news. You don't need to do one. You can jump right into the match as soon as the game starts. But if you're like me and you need a little help first, don't worry. There is a tutorial that's about 25 minutes long. It gives you a little bit of story and teaches you how to move and how to fight with your mech. There are 2 more tutorials you complete, but I skipped those and just started playing. The fast start and no hand-holding approach, unless you want it, earns Mecha its first point. Playing with friends is easy, but also a little annoying. You have to add your friend using the Add Friends tab. Type in their name, hit Add Friend, and once they accept, you can go to their friends list and click Team Up to start playing together. There's a tab to invite your Steam friends. That sounds even more simple, right? You find your friend, click Invite to Play, and nothing happens. It just sends them a Steam message asking them to play the game, but when they click Play Now, it doesn't join your party. It literally just opens the game for them. That's why Mecha doesn't get a point in this area. If I'm inviting a friend to play, it's not so they can play the game alone, it's so they can play it with me. But moving on. One thing that surprised me was that the game started me in ranked mode. Normally I don't play ranked matches right away, but this time I stayed. It didn't feel like a regular ranked match where the super serious players are already in full try-hard mode. Instead, it felt like the players were actually around my skill level. That made it easier to learn without getting crushed. When a match starts, the game tells you what your goal is, shows you where to go, and gives you updates while you play. Because that kind of clarity is sometimes rare in modern games, Mecha absolutely deserves a point for this. There are 3 main modes in this game. The first one I tried was called Operation Verge. It's a 6v6 mode where you and your team have to complete different goals. There are 5 types of missions in this mode, so I'll go through them quickly. Eye of Mizra is where you grab launch keys from data terminals and bring them to the launch site. At the Crowd Sinkhole, you try to capture 3 points on the map. Palm Bay Harbor is a transport mission, but you can speed it up by capturing 3 signal stations. The Cape Blanc Observatory mission is where both teams race to destroy as many Corite extractors as they can. And lastly, there's Graceland Sky City. Here you need to take out the enemy team over 3 rounds. The next mode is Ace Arena. It's a 3v3 match where the first team to 8 kills wins. You can play it casually like I did, or you can go into ranked mode. The last one is called Operation Storm, which is a PvPvE extraction mode. With as much as there is going on with this game, I didn't hop into this mode, but basically it looks like you fight enemies, collect gear, and then try to escape with it. There are also a ton of different mechs to choose from in Mecha but I'll get to that in just a bit. But in terms of the game's depth, this is another point for sure. Besides the game modes, there are also missions you can complete. The missions give you rewards like mission tokens and achievement points. Mission tokens reset at the end of each season, but you can use them in the Logistics tab to get new mech and other gear. Achievement points can help you unlock things like data entries, metal slots, and insignia slots. Achievement points can help you unlock things like data entries, metal slots, and insignia slots. There's also Corite, which is the premium currency, and another one called Matrix credits, which you can spend in the Matrix marketplace. Anyway, going back to the missions, what's cool is that they're tied to specific mechs. That means the game encourages you to try out different mechs instead of just sticking with one. You can stick with one if you want, but you'll earn more rewards by exploring what the others can do. With all the mechs, game modes, missions, and online play, Mecha has a ton of replay value, which means that's another point earned. And from what I've seen, players are really enjoying it. When I logged in, there were almost 8,000 players online, and the peak player count in the last 24 hours was close to 18,000. Over the past week, the game has peaked around 20,000 players each day. If you live in the US, the busiest time to play is in the afternoon or evening, but even during the quiet hours, there's still at least 7,000 people online. No matter when you play, finding a match should be quick and easy, and the solid player base earns Mecha another point. One cool thing I noticed about the tutorial screen is that it tells you how long each tutorial will take. Each one says about 20 minutes, and that was pretty close. Mine took around 22 minutes. There was a bit of story and extra stuff after, but the tutorial time was pretty much spot on. I don't think I've ever seen a time estimate on a tutorial before. Usually you just jump in and hope it's not the most boring 30 or 60 minutes of your life, but this game does it right. Speaking of tutorials, there's also extra ones for different mechs. I didn't go through all of them, but they're there if you want to try them, and honestly I think that's awesome. With so many mechs in the game, this gives you the chance to test them out, see how they feel, and find your favorites. I might actually go back and give a few more a try. The movement in this game really surprised me, in a good way. I thought it would be hard to learn, but it's actually not bad at all. It might take a few minutes to get used to, but once you do, it's a lot of fun. Aiming feels easy even with how fast things move, and the mechs that I tried were really smooth and easy to control. Some mechs might not be built for speed, but the ones I played felt great. The graphics are also super impressive. I'm not just talking about cool textures or explosions, even though those look great too. The whole world feels alive and well designed. Even when I wander near the edge of the map, the detail was amazing. I found a spot where boxes were moving around even though there was nothing else going on there. They didn't have to do that, but it made the game feel more immersive. And last but not least, custom rooms. I love when a game lets you make private matches with your friends. You can just mess around and have fun, and that's always a win in my book. With all of these awesome features, Mecha Break scores yet another point. The UI in this game is really confusing at first. It gets better once you learn it, but early on it's a bit of a mess. I don't know why, but games made by teams in China always seem to have confusing menus. I said the same thing about Delta Force. For some reason, this game has 3 different tabs for game modes. That just feels like too much. It'd be way easier if you could just pick your mode and choose ranked or casual all on one screen. Jumping through menus for no reason gets annoying fast. Picking a mech is also tricky. Each one has a huge list of stats. I don't think most casual players will care about all that info. Even for hardcore players, it feels like it would still be overwhelming. Honestly, if they didn't show all those numbers, I wonder if people would even notice. Now, once you're in a match, controlling a mech feels awesome, but it can be a little confusing at first. I remember when I first started, I accidentally flew into the air and I couldn't figure out how to land. The controls were shown on screen, but there's so much going on that it just takes a little time to get used to. Also, the first time I switched to a new mech, I was surprised at how different the weapons felt. That's probably normal, but it still caught me off guard, so, just a heads up. Aside from those items, I couldn't find anything else to dislike about this game, and so we're going to give it another point. Earlier I said that Mecha Break is one of the most fun free-to-play games that I've tried this year, and I really mean it. I had a blast playing. I'm not sure why, but even when I lost, it didn't feel as frustrating as losing in games like Fortnite or Hackers of Duty. I just jumped into the next match and kept going. Some of the game modes are a lot like Call of Duty multiplayer, but this just felt more fun to me. And when a game is fun, it surely earns a point for that. I can definitely see myself coming back to this game. Honestly, if I can get some of my friends to try it out, I could see this being a regular game in the rotation. I'm not sure if it's their playstyle, and to be fair, I didn't think it was going to be mine either, but I had so much fun it's worth a shot. Maybe I can turn them into fans too, or I'll just come back and play it myself, and that earns this game its last point. Again, I can't say enough good stuff about this game. It's fun, it looks good, and I'm very excited to play more of it. That's why Mecha Break scores a 9 out of 10, putting it in S tier. If you're thinking about trying Mecha Break, I've added links to the store page in the description. Have you ever played a game so wild it feels like chaos in the best way? Do you remember Serious Sam from back in 2001? Maybe not, but you've probably at least heard of Vampire Survivors, the $5 indie game that blew up in 2021 and spread to almost every PC, console, and phone out there. Well, now imagine mixing that non-stop blasting from Serious Sam with the upgrades and XP system of Vampire Survivors. That mashup is called Serious Survivors, and it's a ride. Let's jump in. Getting into a match is super fast. You pick a weapon, choose a special weapon, pick your map, and you're off blasting aliens in seconds. Because it's so quick to start, Serious Survivors earns its first point. The second point comes just as easy since you don't have to worry about inviting friends, it's a single player game. The goal is also super simple to understand. You blast enemies, they drop cash, and collecting cash fills the meter. When your meter fills, you buy an upgrade. The main idea is to stay alive and keep shooting until the timer runs out. Oh, and don't forget to collect dumbbells. Collecting those unlocks new areas and items. With such an easy to learn loop, this game scores another point. Clicking through the menus, it doesn't take long to see that Serious Survivors is pretty light on depth. There's some variety, but not much. You start with a single weapon, the double SMG. From there, you can unlock 3 more with dumbbells, the pistol, shotgun, and grenade thrower. You also get a starting ability with 2 more waiting behind dumbbell unlocks. The arenas work the same way. You begin in an Egyptian desert map, and 2 more arenas can be unlocked again with dumbbells. And that's about it. There's no story, no real challenges, and not even any Steam achievements to chase. I mean, there is a progression system with the upgrades I just mentioned, and I'll touch more on that in a bit, but for now I've got to be honest, Serious Survivors isn't scoring any points for depth. Now let's talk about replayability. Some people might say Serious Survivors doesn't have much since the content is limited, but I'm going to argue the opposite. I actually think this has a lot of replayability, just not in the way you might expect. Here's why. During my first couple hours, I only earned enough dumbbells to unlock both of my special weapons, the shotgun and the grenade thrower. That gave me a small boost in gameplay. After that, I still had 11 dumbbells left over for a total of 36 earned. That wasn't enough to open another arena, so if you're trying to unlock everything, you'll be playing for hours. When I play a game like this, I like ranking up and unlocking things as I go, but with such a small amount of content, it makes sense why it takes so long and so many dumbbells to unlock everything. If everything was quick and easy, people would just burn through the game in no time. Still, I'd love to see more weapons, more arenas, and either cheaper unlocks or more dumbbell drops. But if you enjoy arena-style games with endless waves of enemies, this one will keep you busy for a good while. And for that reason, Serious Survivors earns a point for replayability. Now, let's look at the player base. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this game is pretty dead. The peak number of players Serious Survivors ever had was 102 back on June 19th, 2025, just a couple days after launch. Since then, the numbers dropped fast. These days, only a handful of players make up the 24-hour peak. Why? My guess is that people either ran through the limited content too quickly or they just lost interest. Whatever the reason, the low player count makes it tough to keep the game alive, and because of that, Serious Survivors doesn't earn a point here. Even with the low player count, the reviews tell a different story. On Steam, Serious Survivors has 113 very positive reviews, which shows that most players enjoyed their time with it. And it's easy to see why. The retro graphics feel like a throwback to early 2000s FPS games, and the style matches the non-stop arena action perfectly. If you've played classic shooters where wave after wave of enemies come crashing down on you, this game really captures that spirit. And honestly, mowing down endless hordes of aliens is just plain fun. But here's the catch. Outside of that, there isn't much more excitement to be found. The game is pretty bare bones in what it offers, so unfortunately it doesn't pick up another point in this category. Like most games, Serious Survivors isn't perfect. The issues aren't huge, but they're worth talking about. First, unlocking items can be tricky. If you misclick, the game instantly spends your dumbbells with no pop-up asking you if you're sure you want that item. For some players this might not be an issue, but for me, yeah, it was a problem. The UI also feels a little inconsistent. Sometimes upgrades explain themselves clearly, and other times the wording is confusing and it takes a little bit to figure out what you just unlocked. Even the match results feel clunky. You have to click a couple of times before the stats actually show up. And while I've touched on it before, the difficulty is a bit higher than I'd like for a casual arena shooter. But outside of those things, there wasn't much else to complain about, so overall, Serious Survivors earns a point here. Now, let's talk about the fun factor. Sure, the game is tough, but that's also what makes winning so satisfying. I actually won my very first match, don't ask me how, and that ended up being my easiest run. I must have picked the right upgrades. After that, I didn't win again until my last match. Actually, the first half of this video was my first match, and the second half was my last match. If you watch closely, you'll notice the difference. In the first match, I wasn't hopping all over the place, and I managed to hold enemies back pretty well. In the last match, I was jumping around like a kangaroo at a trampoline park. But honestly, that's part of the fun. Just like Vampire Survivors, you experience with upgrades until you find a combo that clicks. And when it does, it feels great and makes for a fun time. You could even say a single point's worth of fun. That said, even though I've enjoyed myself, there isn't much here to keep me coming back. If the game had more content to unlock, different difficulty modes, or even a multiplayer option to blast aliens with friends, I'd happily keep playing. But as it stands, I think I've seen everything it has to offer. No points here. In the end, Serious Survivors is a fun game that can keep you busy for hours, but because it lacks depth and the features that usually bring players back, I don't see it holding long-term attention. That's why it lands at a 6 out of 10, putting it in B tier. If you're thinking about trying Serious Survivors, I've added links to the store page in the description. Skate hands you a massive city to explore, endless rails to grind, and enough tricks to keep you learning for hours. From your very first kickflip to chasing friends across San Vansterdam, this game is all about freedom and style. But is the thrill of the ride enough to keep you coming back? Let's drop in and see if Skate sticks the landing. When you start the game, one of two things is going to happen. Let's start with the happy path. First, you have a chance to configure a handful of options. Then you choose your controller layout. If you're familiar with games in the Skate series, you can choose classic controls, otherwise you can use the streamlined controls like I did. Lastly, you head off to the character creator. In the character creator, there aren't a ton of options, but there are options. After your character setup, you're dropped into a basic movement tutorial, and that ultimately brings you to a point on the map where you're transported to the main city, San Vansterdam. The not so happy path is that when you start the game, there's a chance you're going to get stuck in a queue. The one you're seeing on screen is short, but I've had queue times of 10 and 15 minutes before. I have some more complaining to do on this, but it's way too early in the video for that, so we'll get to that later. Ultimately, your first time getting started is about 15 minutes, and anytime after that, assuming you don't run into queue issues, you're basically skating within a couple minutes. So we'll give Skate a point in this area. Every once in a while, we find a game where joining a friend is annoying, and Skate is among them. Before you can join a friend, you have to complete the tutorial and make your way to Sandvan. That's short for Sandvansterdam, in case you were wondering. In fact, that's pretty much the only way they refer to it in the game. Anyway, it's not unusual to have to complete a tutorial before you can party up with friends in a game. But this is where everything starts to fall apart. I had my friend send me a friend request once they got to the point where they could. When I got the friend request, it was just a large string of numbers, presumably an ID related to his EA account. But that doesn't help me. What is this request and why am I getting it? If you're not communicating with a friend, you just have no idea what it is unless you go into your friend requests. Also, I went in there and saw their account twice, one inactive and one active. Now, once you're friends, you can either send an invite or join a party if the person you're trying to join allows it. In my case, I had my friend join on me. There is a teleport option that I tried to use so I could just teleport to them, but for some reason it was grayed out, so I just decided to skate over to them. But lo and behold, I couldn't see them. Like, I could see where they were supposed to be, but I couldn't see the character, only their nameplate. I had my friend try to teleport to me and it didn't work. I could see the name tag move when they did, but nothing actually happened. I even went as far as like spectating them and clicking the teleport button from there, and my game froze. After relaunching the game and re-inviting them to the party, they were finally able to teleport to me and they showed up on screen. Oh yeah, and because I restarted the game, I had to wait in a queue again. Cool. I think it's safe to say Skate doesn't get a point in this area because this process should have been so much easier. Skate's objective is impossible to not figure out. Why is that? Because the game feels like one giant tutorial. I'm going to touch more on this in a minute along with the long queue thing I keep talking about, so just hang in there, I promise we'll get there. Ultimately, you'll learn how to skate the city and complete challenges on the map while you go. You can unlock other areas of the city, fast travel spots, and earn rip chips to unlock gear. At the end of the day, it's a skating game after all, so the objective should be pretty clear. Easy point in this area. When it comes to how you skate, there's a lot to learn. There's a literal encyclopedia, the Skatepedia, to learn how to do every trick in the game. There are a lot. Even though some are just the same movement in the opposite direction, there are a lot. And not all of them are easy to replicate, at least for a newbie like me. But once you go beyond the tricks, there really isn't much depth in this game. There's no story or career mode, so you're kind of just doing challenges and that's it. Like, sure, you unlock other areas and some fast travel spots, but unless those areas have something different than Hedgemont, then it's just more challenges. There's some variation in the challenges, but overall it starts to feel repetitive really quick. So due to the lack of depth, Skate doesn't get a point here. I kind of called it out when talking about depth, but in terms of replayability, I'm not really seeing much here. Typically, open world games have a ton of replayability because there's always something new to do. In Skate, I was excited when I saw that the challenges reset after a period of time. I thought, oh cool, I can complete these challenges and then come back when they reset and do new ones. Except that when they reset, it's just the same challenge again. Why the heck would I want to complete those? Like, how boring to get stuck in an infinite loop of the same challenges. The only other thing to really do to extend your gameplay is to skate around with friends, try new tricks, or do something cool for the memes. But that doesn't really seem like enough to make the content replayable, so yet again, Skate won't get a point. When it comes to the number of people playing Skate, it's an insane amount. When I checked, there were 125,000 players online, and that number is steadily increasing day after day. This is only the Steam numbers too, and so the number is much higher with the game also being available on the EA and Epic stores. But not only that, it's available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, plus the game is also being planned to be released on Android and iOS at some point in the future. So even though Skate didn't get points in some of those other areas, it does get a point for the number of players. Before I start getting into the likes and dislikes of this game, I have to let people know that this is my first Skate game. I haven't played any of the others in the series, and the only other skateboard games I played were the Tony Hawk games back in the day. So it's been a while. The things I'm talking about are strictly from a I played a game and here's what I experienced point of view. There's so many other creators out there who are Skate fanatics that have great takes on this game, and I would recommend watching them if you're looking for more of a comparison. With that aside, something that I thought was cool about Skate is the level design. Every inch of the city is skatable. You can tell that a lot of thought went into every rail, every jump, every step, and pretty much every other aspect of it. The climbing spots are also thought out really well, and it makes traversing the city not only easy, but a lot of fun. It also helps to give a little variation by getting off your board for a bit. Sadly, that's kind of the only good thing I have to say, and so once again, Skate doesn't get any points here. Now it's time to strap in because we have a lot of problems to talk about. Starting with the first thing I mentioned early on, the queue. Sitting down to play a game only to find out that you have to wait in a queue to get access is extremely annoying, especially because it's from a publisher as big as EA. The publisher that's willing to let you make in-game purchases, but then when you want to come play their game and utilize the items you purchased, you can't. It's easy to see that there's a lot of demand for this game, but EA is a huge company and has the resources to not only plan for this, but to also provide enough servers to let people play, and they simply aren't. Maybe it's not worth the return for them, but then why do we have a live service Skate game? What's the point? Because we're talking about EA servers, I want to talk about some of the bugs I experienced because this is a great segue. On launch day, albeit later in the evening, the servers were unavailable. Now, being that this is an early access game and being overloaded on launch day, this was kind of expected, but again, it's frustrating seeing this coming from a publisher like EA. I'm not sure if anyone else has experienced this on other days or not, so maybe they're past the server issues, but I still wanted to mention it since it was my experience. Other bugs I ran into were my skateboard sound randomly stopping, but all the other sounds around me still worked, and missions weren't populating on the map when they were supposed to. Thankfully, restarting the game fixed this, but guess what? I had to wait in a queue to get back in. Aside from the issues I experienced, there are some fundamental issues with the gameplay that I expect will frustrate players. Starting with the fact that the first few hours in this game feel like a tutorial. You're literally guided from point to point to learn how to do things. Even when it seems like it's over, you go do something else for a little bit and then suddenly you're down another tutorial path. I get that there are a lot of things to learn in this game if you want to master it, but don't make it mandatory. Add it to the map and let players go to it when they want. Also, some of these tutorials are longer than they need to be. For example, skating to 4 different spots to figure out how to use the camera to create replay clips was really annoying. It's not even that feature rich. Just give me a brief overview and let me be on my way. I'll check it out on my own if I truly want to play with it. Digging into the gameplay a bit, the only thing there really is to do is challenges. And because some of the challenges that reset aren't actually replaced by different challenges, there really isn't much to do. There's no career mode, and aside from unlocking areas and cosmetics, I'm not really sure what else you would do in this game. Speaking of cosmetics, you can earn rip chips by completing challenges, but what sucks about them is that you can only spend them on mystery boxes. So after going out and completing a bunch of challenges, you don't really even get to choose what you're spending your chips on. Instead, you have to purchase a mystery box and hope that you get something cool. Thankfully, the items that you purchase with Sandban Bucks, the game's paid currency, let you make those purchases individually. But it's still a mechanic I'm not a fan of. The next thing might just be a me problem, but I wanted to mention it for others who don't play skateboarding games regularly, or, maybe you're like me and you haven't played any other games in the Skate series. Even with the streamlined controls, I felt like it was kind of hard to control my character sometimes. Again, probably just me, but I feel like I was making the correct movements and my character just wasn't doing what I wanted. There were a couple of times it frustrated me to the point that I just had to quit. To make sure it was just me, I actually jumped into Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and confirmed that I am just really bad at skateboarding games, even though they used to be my jam back in the day. Lastly, I know that there are a lot of people who are huge fans of the Skate series and are both excited and disappointed in this game. The frustration is very clear given the number of negative reviews that have popped up on Steam, as well as many creators on YouTube who've been making videos on it. As someone who's never played the games before, I can't relate to their criticisms. But reading through the negative reviews, it definitely makes sense why they're frustrated given the departure from the series and the fact that early playtesters have said that their feedback was basically ignored. The reason this is worth mentioning is the last part. If you're planning to start playing this game and you get really into it so much that you want to start providing feedback, be prepared to be ignored. You may or may not get what you want. Given that this is the longest tangent about a game's issues I've had so far on this channel, I think it's safe to say Skate will not be getting any points in this area. I know it's going to sound weird to you right now because I just spent a bunch of time talking about all the bad things about this game, but Skate is actually fun to play. I really did have a good time learning new tricks and skating the city, even though there were times I got frustrated. For me, checking off challenges is fun, even if they are repetitive, and playing something that's very different from the other games on the market right now was enjoyable. If you're looking for something that you can hop into with friends and have some fun, this will definitely scratch that itch, so Skate gets a point here. In terms of returning to the game, it's hard to say. If challenges in Skate refreshed with different challenges instead of the same ones, didn't have the queue issues to get into the game, had a career mode or at least some mechanic that made me feel like I was working towards something, I could see coming back. But right now, it seems like a shell of a game that has promise but hasn't delivered yet. I really do hope that this happens as Skate continues its early access, but for now, I don't really see a reason to keep playing it. So for this last section, it won't be getting a point. I came into this review with some pretty high hopes and expectations given that this is coming from a AAA publisher. But once again, EA has done nothing but disappoint. I hope that they start taking player feedback seriously and this game ends up thriving, but only time will tell. Ultimately, Skate ends up getting a 4 out of 10, placing it in C tier. If you're thinking about trying Skate, I've added links to the store page in the description. As we get into spooky season, it only makes sense that we kick off with a free-to-play horror game on Steam. Not just any horror game though, one that's been around for a while, still has a decent player base given its age, and has a lot of content to play through. So grab your candy bag and let's enter the world of Cry of Fear, if you dare. Getting into a game is pretty quick, minus some odd issues I experienced with this 12-year-old game. I'll get into the specifics on that in a bit, but if you click New Game, you just select your difficulty and you're in. So Cry of Fear gets a point here. In multiplayer, at least from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to be the story that you play through. I went in to host a server and I just spawned in an awkward room with creatures all around me. I'd have to look into the gameplay more, but as it turns out, you can't just host a server and have a friend join on you. Again, because of the game's age, you either need to download a server browser from ModDB, or you need to use Hamachi. The developers actually have a tutorial on their YouTube channel, so I'll add a link to both the video and the ModDB link so you can check out both options. Unfortunately, the game doesn't get a point here because the multiplayer requires a third-party app to work. As for gameplay and figuring out the game's objective, there really isn't a tutorial, but there are some pop-ups that tell you how to perform some tasks. You can also press a button to figure out what your next objective is. For the most part, at least in the early game, notes on the ground give you clues or hints that are also used to solve puzzles. As you solve the puzzles, the story starts to unfold. Since it's easy to figure out how the game operates, it gets a point here. Even though the story remains quite the mystery and isn't always clear what's going on or why you're there, you end up discovering things as you go that drive the story. You acquire new weapons and you're introduced to monsters or ghosts or beings, whatever you want to call them. For the purpose of this video, we'll just call them the bad guys. You do also run into another character as you progress, but I don't want to put too many spoilers in this video. Let's just give it a point here and keep moving on. In terms of gameplay or replayability, it feels like there's a lot here. The multiplayer, even though it takes a sec to set up, has a bunch of different maps to choose from, which will give you and your friends a lot of options. In the single player mode, it feels like there's a lot of story here. I was actually curious what the gameplay was like, and HowLongToBeat.com puts the average at about 8 hours 44 minutes, while the leisurely is more like 12 hours. So regardless of which game mode you choose, you'll have plenty of gameplay. Easy point here. I was very surprised to see how many people were playing Cry of Fear. This is a game that was released 12 years ago and it still has a following. When I played, there were 439 players online and the 24-hour peak was 610 players. You can see looking at the last week or so, there was a slight uptick, probably because we're getting into spooky season. But the crazy thing is that the uptick isn't really all that dramatic. Going back 3 months, this game just consistently has around 600 or 700 players. So the game gets another point in this area. Something I didn't mention at the start of this is that Cry of Fear has some adult content. Not nudity that I know of, but certain sensitive subjects like unaliving yourself, and of course there's gore. For that reason, I would recommend this game only be played by adults, but I'm just a guy who makes videos on the internet, so do what you want. The reason I bring this up is because I actually like that those things are portrayed in the game. I feel like games these days play it too safe, and it makes sense because you have to appeal to the majority, but there are some pretty graphic scenes here that aren't just gory for the sake of gore. They actually add to the story. But due to their sensitive nature, it's worth mentioning. The game has some awesome Silent Hill and Resident Evil vibes. I used to love both of those games growing up, and this kind of made me feel like I was playing one of them again. Cry of Fear is a horror game, and so it should be scary. But in addition to some of the jump scare moments scattered throughout, Jesus. The aesthetic and the sounds in the game really build suspense and adds to the overall experience. You feel like you need to creep around every corner because you just really don't know what's going to happen next. The way the story progresses and different mechanics appear over time makes the game feel more rewarding than just a standard gameplay loop of the same thing over and over. For example, taking pictures, unlocking new weapons, using a computer in-game and typing username and password to get a login passcode, or dialing a phone number with your phone for reasons. Again, I don't want to give away too much, so we'll give the game a point in this area, and I'll talk about some of the issues I experienced. Because this is an older game and started as a mod for the original Half-Life, it's built on what I assume is the original source engine. So the game was a bit quirky at the start. I ended up with a return null error, but the game still launched. Also, trying to play this in 1440p isn't recommended. When I would click on the UI, the position of the mouse wasn't accurate, so I basically had to click under an item in order to actually click on it. When I switched my resolution to 1920 by 1080, the issue didn't happen anymore. Another issue I ran into was the game just not responding here and there from the main menu. Once I was in game, everything was fine, but just the menu seemed to freak out sometimes and I'd have to restart the game. Otherwise, my overall experience was really good, and so Cry Fear definitely gets another point here. I was a bit worried that being a puzzle game, I wasn't going to enjoy it, but there was enough of a mix of stuff going on that it didn't feel like a constant barrage of unsolvable puzzles. I actually had a really good time in this game. Because of its fun factor, it gets a point here. And because it was so fun, I can see myself coming back. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of this story and it got me kind of hooked. I'm excited to jump back in and see how this thing ends, which means that the game gets its last point here. Cry Fear is a super interesting game with a great story and awesome mechanics. Again, it's probably a game for an older audience, but I would highly recommend it. And that's why Cry Fear scores a 9 out of 10, putting it in S tier. If you're thinking about trying Cry Fear, I've added links to the store page in the description. What if you could run, jump, and race a Sonic with all of your friends, and it was totally free? That's what Sonic Rumble is all about. It takes you to a brand new world where you can play with your pals or challenge strangers from around the world. It's super fun, easy to play, and you don't have to pay a single penny. But here's the big question. Is Sonic Rumble fun enough to keep players coming back, or are there too many things that get in the way of a good time? Let's dive in and find out. Sonic Rumble throws you into a super fast tutorial right away. You learn how to move, double jump, break objects with the action button, and even attack. The whole thing takes less than a minute. After that, the game drops you into ring survival. If you're good enough, the game will last for 3 rounds. Then you enter your name and you're ready to play. Since the game gets you into the action so quickly, Sonic Rumble earns a point here. Before we keep going, I just want to say that there are a lot of party games out in the world, but Fall Guys is probably the most well-known. I'm going to be referencing it quite a bit in this video, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, if you want to team up with a friend, you might run into some problems. For some reason, my friend couldn't send me an invite to play. When they searched for my name, it never showed up. I don't know if their account was too new or why restarting the game didn't fix it, but it's really annoying when you just want to play a game with a friend and simple things like finding them doesn't work. I was able to add them easily on my side, which helped, but a big company like Sega should know that this basic friend joining feature needs to work perfectly right when the game starts, so no point here. The goal of the game is really easy to understand. Everything you learned in the tutorial is exactly how you would play during real matches. When a round starts, the game shows you the objective on screen so you always know what to do. There are lots of different match types with small twists, but the gameplay is still simple to learn. This is especially true if you played a party game like Fall Guys before. Because the objective is easy to figure out, Sonic Rumble gets a point here. The game's mechanics and features don't really change much as you play, so there's not much to surprise you. There's also no story. Since this is a party game with short rounds, that makes sense, but I still think it would have been cool to see the Sonic universe grow a little instead of just using the Sonic name to sell a party game. And trust me, we'll get to some of my gripes in a minute, but I had to let that little one slip through. One thing this game does have though is a bunch of different game modes, so let's go through them so you know exactly what you're getting into. In Quick Rumble, you face off against 7 other players in a single round. Win the round and you win it all. You need a ticket to play, and while you get 1 free ticket each day, you can only save up to 3 of them. Ring Survival is the main mode with 24 players. You play through 3 random stages, each with different mini-games. Every round decides who moves forward and who gets kicked out. At the end, players are ranked by how many rings they collected, and the one with the most rings wins. There's also a squad mode version, but for some reason it only works during certain hours. I'm not sure why. In co-op battle, you team up with a huge group of players in a 32-player co-op fight. You attack the boss to deal damage, but if you lose all your rings, you're out. Your reward depends on how much damage you do before the timer ends. There are also custom matches that you can create to play with others, or play solo. You can even add AI enemies to practice against. Finally, there's Stage Challenge. In this mode, you earn medals to unlock more stages. You take on challenge battles to earn rewards for clearing certain goals. As you finish these challenges, you can spend medals to earn promotions. After you earn 5 promotions, the hard mode version unlocks.
3 demerits and you'll receive a citation. 5 citations and you're looking at a violation. 4 of those and you'll receive a verbal warning.
I saved stage challenge for last because even when explained simply, it still sounds kind of confusing. And that's pretty much how the game explains it too. Being confusing at times is a pattern with this game, and we'll talk more about that soon. But for now, we're not giving Sonic Rumble a point for depth because there just isn't any. When it comes to gameplay and replayability, the game has a lot to offer. Playing against other people usually makes a game fun on its own, but Sonic Rumble gives you even more reasons to keep coming back. While I was playing, there was a Halloween event going on, and I'm guessing other big holidays will have events too. There was also a Sonic 3 crossover happening at the same time. These events mostly give you challenges to complete, and when you finish them, you earn items and rings. On top of that, there are missions, an event pass, grade rewards, emblem rewards, achievement raffles, crews, which are basically clans, and crew score missions. Plus there's a free season pass and a paid one. See what I mean by convoluted? There's a lot going on here. It's good because it gives players a ton of goals to work towards, but it can also feel a little overwhelming. You can also unlock player skins, emotes, skills, stickers, buddies, and effects as you play. Whether you enjoy grinding or not, you'll almost always be unlocking something new. Because there's so much to do in this game, we're giving it a point here. Since I first played Sonic Rumble, the number of players has gone down a bit. That's pretty normal for most games after they launch, so it's not a big shock. What is surprising though is that more people are playing Sonic Rumble on Steam than Fall Guys. I have to say on Steam because Fall Guys is also on the Epic Store and Sonic Rumble is on mobile too. Since I can't see the player numbers on those platforms, it's hard to get the full picture. But the 24-hour peak for Fall Guys is right around 600, while Sonic Rumble is at nearly 1,000 players. The numbers don't lie, but it's wild that a game as loved and well known as Fall Guys has fewer Steam players than this one. That's another point for Sonic Rumble. So what's cool about this game? First, you get to play as a bunch of different characters from the Sonic universe, and not just one version of them, you can unlock multiple versions. For example, you can get the Sonic 3 Sonic, Officer Sonic, Gold Style Sonic, and others. That's just a small sample, and the same thing is true for other characters as well. After almost every match, you unlock something new, which makes the game feel like you're always making progress. Is every reward amazing? Not really, but it's still more than some games where you play for a while and barely earn anything at all. Just keep in mind that this constant item earning can feel a little mobile game-like, which can be both good and bad. The gameplay is also very easy to understand. It's more forgiving than Fall Guys, so it's a great entry-level party game even for players who aren't very good at these kind of games. That includes me too. Sadly, that's where the cool stuff ends. There isn't anything else unique or interesting enough to give Sonic Rumble another point, so we won't. When it comes to what isn't cool about this game, let's start with the very first thing you see. When you begin playing, the game gives you a random skin, and you can't choose your own. Even if it's just a simple starter skin that you won't be using for long anyway, it would still be nice if you could pick the one you want. The next issue is the player name. I tried entering MaximumSponge and kept getting an invalid string error. The game says your name can be 2 to 14 characters and use letters, numbers, or certain symbols. My name is only 13 characters, so it should have worked. I even saw somebody in the game with a 14 character name, but for some reason mine just didn't work. We've already talked about the issue with adding a friend, so I won't dive back into it, just know that it's still not cool. Another problem is how much this game feels like a mobile-first game that was ported to PC. The UI is huge for no reason. Some of the text even says things like tap instead of click, and the way you unlock things across tons of screens with tons of currencies is a big giveaway. Even worse are the constant pop-ups for microtransactions. Nothing kills the fun faster than sitting down to enjoy a game and getting hit over and over with messages telling you to buy something. If I want to spend money, I will. You don't have to remind me every 5 seconds, especially right after the tutorial when I've only played for about 2 minutes. I don't know about you, but I've never played a game in my entire life that was so good I wanted to spend money on it right after the tutorial. Lastly, the skins are pay to win. If you want to be at the top of the pack, buying skins and buddies is basically the way to do it. A legendary skin from the store gives you a 120% bonus. Compare that to my epic cheerleader rogue skin, which gives me a 48% bonus and took actual work to unlock and upgrade. At first I thought this bonus only counted after the match, but according to Sonic Rumble's own support page, the total combined score of skins and buddies in your inventory will activate as a score bonus during battle. That means that players who spend money start battles with a huge advantage. And honestly, nobody wants pay-to-win items, and if they do, they're probably the same people who use cheats in Warzone. That alone is enough to say that we're not giving Sonic Rumble any points here. But really, it's because of everything I just talked about. So, moving on. When I first started playing Sonic Rumble, I honestly wanted to dislike it. The mobile game feel and all the microtransaction pop-ups pushed me away right away. I also thought Fall Guys just feels more polished and more fun, right? But then I kept playing, and what I realized is that if you look strictly at Sonic Rumble's gameplay experience, where no one is forcing you to buy anything, you don't have to be super competitive, and you can jump in and out whenever you want, it's actually really enjoyable. In fact, I found myself winning way more than I do in Fall Guys, and trust me, that does not happen a lot. But it felt good to actually win sometimes and to not get kicked out in the first round. So by the time I finished playing, it was easy to give Sonic Rumble a point in this area. But now comes the hard question. Would I come back to it? And honestly, this is tough. I had fun, so the answer should be simple, right? Well, not really. It's cool that there's a Sonic-themed party game, but I still have to ask, what does this game offer me that Fall Guys doesn't? And the truth is, I don't think Sonic Rumble offers anything new that makes me want to choose it over Fall Guys, especially if you're a player who's already invested time and or money into it. All the issues I talked about earlier just aren't a problem in Fall Guys, so if I can get a similar experience without those problems, I'm more likely to play that instead. I won't say I'd never come back to Sonic Rumble, but the chances are very small, so no point here. At the end of the day, there are good things and bad things about this game. Slightly more bad things, but that's not the point. The point is that you can have a relatively fun experience with this game if you're not taking it too seriously, but being a pay-to-win mobile game on PC just doesn't seem like it's going to be sustainable, and because of that, Sonic Rumble scores a 5 out of 10, putting it in C tier. If you're thinking about trying Sonic Rumble, I've added links to the store page in the description. Have you ever wanted to play a game about picking up garbage? No? What if the garbage could power a whole island? And what if that island was full of broken robots, strange secrets, and mystery only you can solve? Still no? Well, you're not alone, but I think this game might surprise you. It's called The Last Shores, and it's an adventure you won't forget. You start the game as Tal. She just finished up school at Green Corps Academy and now gets to clean up the coast of any island she wants. And guess what? She picks Bella Vista Island. She isn't going there just to clean though. Tal wants to find her dad who went missing, and this island holds the clues she needs to find him. You're given a short tutorial in your journal, and it shows you how to move, how the cleaning system works, and a few other details that you need to know. Since you can jump into the game fast, we'll give it a point here. The game isn't multiplayer, but that's totally fine. This is the kind of world that feels best when you explore it alone. And because you don't have to worry about joining friends for this experience, we're going to give the game a free point. The main goal sits in the top left corner of your screen, so it's never hard to figure out what to do. Auto loot is on by default, which makes things even easier. Your job is simple: pick up trash. There's even a trash container waiting for your first few items. As you walk down the beach, you'll see garbage everywhere, so you get right to work. Each time you turn in trash, your bag capacity increases. A clear objective like this earns the game another point. When it comes to depth in The Last Shores, there isn't much in terms of game mechanics, tough challenges, or big progression systems, but the story is what really pulls you in. As you explore the island, you'll notice tall wind turbines. You can use the energy you earn from turning in trash to power them up, and if you're wondering why you should turn them on, don't worry, you'll learn the reason as you play. No spoilers here. You'll also meet robots and other strange entities around the island. You can talk to them, interact with them, and learn more about what happened here. As you do, the island's mysteries slowly unfold and Tal starts to uncover more about her father's disappearance. Or does she? Even though the story is strong, The Last Shores won't get a point here because the game doesn't have a lot of depth overall. Sadly, this game doesn't offer much replayability. If you start over, you'll pretty much have the exact same experience. You can try going for achievements, but if you check them out before you play, you'll probably be able to finish most of them on your first run. So, no point here. When it comes to how many people are playing the game, the numbers aren't great. But before I share those numbers, it's important to understand the reason behind it. The Last Shores is the first game made by Black Frog Studio, and after watching the credits, it looks like one person developed the whole thing. Solo developers usually don't have big marketing budgets, and since this is their first game, it makes sense that the player base is small. But there's good news. The reviews are strong. Recent reviews are mostly positive, and the overall reviews are positive too. So even though not many people are playing The Last Shores, the players who do try it seem to enjoy it. With all that said, there were 0 people playing at the time I started. The all-time peak player count is 8, and the 24-hour peak is 2, so we can't give it a point here. Now, the reason for all those positive reviews is pretty easy to see. The moment you start the game, you're hit with the visuals, and they are stunning. It's not just the world around you. The characters, the items on the ground, and almost everything you see feels like it was designed with care. Like I said earlier, The Lost Shores also has a very captivating story. It starts off in a dramatic way and it pulls you in instantly, but even with that strong story hook, the rest of the gameplay feels cozy and calm. It makes you want to follow Tal's journey and figure out what really happened to her father. Now, the game mechanics might feel simple to some players, and that's fair. but that's also what makes this game so relaxing. Whether you're at your desk, in your comfiest chair, or curled up on your favorite spot on the couch, this is a game you can just take your time with. There's nothing overly complicated to manage. You simply sit back, clean up the island, and chill. Lastly, the soundtrack is great. It matches the world perfectly and adds to the calm, peaceful feeling of the game. It's hard to tell if the music was made just for the game or if it was chosen from another artist, but either way, it fits wonderfully. And when you remember that all of this came from a solo developer, it's easy to give The Last Shores a point here. When it comes to things I didn't like about the game, there's really only one big issue. I wish there was more of it. The gameplay is pretty short and the ending feels a little open-ended. Maybe the developer did this on purpose so the story could continue later, but it's hard to know without any information from them. Other than that, everything else in this game feels smooth and well made. I don't have any real complaints about this experience, so we'll give it another point here. When it comes to the game's fun factor, I had a great time. This pulled me in so much that I played it from start to finish without taking a break. I even went back afterwards to grab some of the Steam achievements I missed because I enjoyed it that much. If you like cozy games, or if you're just starting your gaming journey, this will be a fun and relaxing experience for you. Easy point here. In terms of returning to the game, I already mentioned that starting over won't give you a new experience. If the developer added new content someday, I would gladly come back because I enjoyed the game that much. But since there's no sign of that happening, at least at the time of posting this video, I can't give it a point here. Right now, there just isn't a reason to return after you've already beaten the game. Overall, this game was a lot of fun to play and is the perfect example of a cozy game. It's simple, it looks amazing, and tells a story you'll want to see all the way through. I'm really hoping that we'll get more story at some point, but for now I guess I'll have to live with the story we were given. I also hope that more people hear about this game and start playing it, even if it's from somewhere other than this video. Because this is an all-around great time, it's easy for me to recommend this game to everyone watching, and that's also why The Last Shores earns a 6 out of 10, placing it in B tier. If you're thinking about trying The Last Shores, I've added links to the store page in the description. Also, don't forget to click the video link on your screen, because this next game might be your new favorite.